Honorable Alan Ganu, Minister of Land Transport and Light Rail, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, Mr. Sudhamulal, Director General, Mauritius Revenue Authority, Dr. Kunyo Mikuria, Secretary General, World Customs Organization, Mr. Adrian Peter Suarez, WCO ESA Vice Chair, Mr. Larry Liza, WCO ESA ROCB Director, Mr. Rambaran, Director, Customs Mauritius Revenue Authority, Mr. Monikam, Director, Human Resources and Training Department, and Head RTC Mauritius, distinguished participants, researchers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, bonjour, bon dia. I am Rajendra Gupta Ramnarayan, Section Head at the Mauritius Revenue Authority and the MC for this conference. Welcome to the third WCO ESA Regional Customs Research Conference. The theme this year is the effect of emerging issues on the role of customs and trade. This is a well-chosen theme as the world has gone topsy-turvy since the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic. Mauritius is proud to host this webinar, and had it not been for the new normal, we would all have been somewhere under the sun in Mauritius. Maybe for another time. To show the importance of research in our everyday life, I will quote Albert Saint-Georgi, who stated, I quote, "Research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has thought," unquote. Research is important for various reasons. Some may be like it's a tool for building knowledge and facilitating learning. Research is a means to understand issues and increase public awareness. It helps us succeed in business. It allows us to disprove lies and support truth. It is a means to find, gauge, and seize opportunities. It promotes a love and confidence in reading, writing, analyzing, and sharing valuable information. It also provides nourishment and exercise for the mind. Research increases the quality of life. Research empowers us with knowledge, and it drives progress forward. Having said this, I will now invite Mr. Larry Liza, WCO ESA ROCB Director, to deliver his remarks. Mr. Larry Liza is a Director of the World Customs Organization, East and Southern Africa Regional Office for Capacity Building. He is in charge of implementing capacity building initiatives for 24 member countries in the region. The focus of his service includes promotion, growth in intra-regional trade, promoting fair and efficient revenue mobilization, strengthening intra-regional compliance and enforcement, and enhancing integrity and professionalism in human capital. Under customs business partnerships, Mr. Liza cooperates with the private sector, including logistics companies, in light of their critical role in international trade and economic development. Larry Liza, who is serving on secondment from Kenya Revenue Authority, has a master's degree in planning and management and a Bachelor of Science degree, both from University of Nairobi, among other qualifications. He is a Kenyan-born poet, published author, and global champion for maternal health. The floor is yours, Mr. Larry Liza.
Dignitaries, directors general, and commissioners, friends and colleagues from across the customs world, the private sector, and the academia. My heart is full that this conference is finally coming to pass. We went down with the pandemic, but we did not go out. We are coming back better and stronger, with unintended outcomes of the pandemic building on our positivity for prosperity and posterity. While we would have loved to be in the paradise of Mauritius today, we now have a conference that is enabling more people to attend than would have made it to paradise, literally. A huge lesson learned is that in future, we shall be having a more blended approach to missions and meetings, trainings, and more capacity building activities. I am thankful to the entire team that has made this possible, from the people and government of Mauritius to the WCO regional training centers in Kenya and Mauritius, from the supervisors to the researchers who never gave up when some did, and suddenly to the entire team at the ROCB, to the World Customs Organization and to the WCO ESA project for their support, and of course to Lawyers Hub in Kenya for helping us put this up together as it is. Ladies and gentlemen, from the beginning, we always envisioned that there would be emerging challenges and issues in customs and trade. If the last 2 years is anything to go by, I need not say more. And so I welcome all of you to this conference. Joining us today and tomorrow is a high-level team of top government officials, directors general and commissioners, the WCO Secretary General, scholars, customs officials, and our close friends, the private sector. As you listen in, notice the promises that they bring in growing our knowledge and skill set and provoking our thinking. I call upon all of you, all of us, to reflect and where possible, weigh in on the discussions for outcomes that will be implemented towards making our region and suddenly our world the greatest it could ever be. Welcome to the 3rd ESA Regional Research Conference.
Thank you, Mr. Larry Liza, for your introductory remarks. I will now invite Mr. Adrian Peter Suarez, WCO ESA Vice Chair, to address the audience. Mr. Adrian Peter Suarez is currently the Acting Commissioner, Customs and Excise at the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. He joined the then Department of Customs and Excise in January 1991 and has amassed a vast knowledge of customs procedures and legislation over the years, and has been very instrumental in the modernization efforts of the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. He is a holder of a master's degree in business administration and a Bachelor of Commerce in fiscal studies. Mr. Adrian, please.
To the honorable guests and distinguished delegates joining us this morning, a very good morning from Zimbabwe. On behalf of the ESA Management Committee and the Governing Council, I congratulate our Regional Office for Capacity Building and the Mauritius Revenue Authority for finally hosting this conference. You will recall that this conference was postponed twice due to the various challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic, which is upon us. The ESA Regional Research Program is a priority for the Governing Council, which directed the ROCB office to run it in order to improve on the institutional capacity and the body of knowledge in customs through research. I recall that we successfully hosted the first conference in Zimbabwe in 2014, with Kenya successfully hosting the second conference. We are thankful that Mauritius offered to host this conference physically, but as fate may have it, the conference is now being held virtually. I therefore congratulate all the organizers and particularly the researchers whose works will be discussed during this conference for stepping out and stepping up. I am persuaded that the outcomes of the conference will be equally critical in charting the way forward for the region. Remember too that we have high-level panel discussions on topical issues such as the return to normalcy, the impact of virtual engagements, and the effects of the pandemic on revenue, which are all central themes in the world of customs. Ladies and gentlemen, our world and certainly our region has faced unprecedented challenges over the last 2 years. But as we all know, we have done our bit to rise above the occasion and to re-engineer the functions of customs. The World Customs Organization quickly came up with novel ways and means to guide us in delivering our mandates. and so did member administrations, the private sector, and other partners involved in the supply chain. We are recrafting new strategies at regional and global level to meet these challenges, and I am persuaded that these will offer us greater guidelines in our service delivery. Through these strategies, we shall enhance focus on trade facilitation and integration, revenue mobilization and modernization, compliance and enforcement, and last but not least, professionalism and partnerships. I congratulate everyone for their continued roles in returning us to normalcy. Finally, delegates, I am calling for robust discussions along the theme of the conference, which is emerging issues on customs and trade. Let's not consider the challenges, but let's reflect on the opportunities presented by these issues and employ foresight towards a better future of the region. I wish you all fruitful deliberations, and I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adrian, for setting the objectives right. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the pleasure to invite Dr. Kunio Mikuria, Secretary General of the WCO, to deliver his speech on this occasion. Dr. Kunio Mikuria is a Secretary General of the World Customs Organization since 1st January 2009. He provides leadership and executive management for the global customs community's priorities, including developing global customs instruments, standards, and tools, securing and facilitating global trade, protecting taxable amounts through optimal revenue collection, building customs business partnerships, and delivering capacity building in support of customs reform and modernization. Prior to joining the WCO, Dr. Kunio Mikuria worked for Japan's Ministry of Finance for 25 years. So the floor is yours, Secretary General, Dr. Mikuria.
Excellencies, friends, and dear participants. It is a great pleasure to speak at the third Customs Research Conference for the ESA region, dealing with a wide-ranging agenda that shows the prevailing interest for research in the region. I would like to take this opportunity to express my thanks to the Vice Chair, ROCB, and the RTC in Mauritius for organizing this event that attracts not only customs officers, but also our partners in governments, regional organizations, academia, and the private sector. Customs is often at the center of economic activities and could provide useful information to governments and business. Indeed, when the WCO conducted the environmental scan earlier this year, members envisioned the desirable future of customs administration in the WCO as trusted government advisors on trade and tax matters and are fully engaged in political decision-making process through provision of evidence-based information derived from the data they collect. The WCO PICAL Conference for Research was created with this future vision for customs in mind, and therefore the regional chapter of Research Conference is more than welcome, as sharing knowledge is often most effective when using a regional platform. As the world is struggling to move towards the post-pandemic era, it will be important to take stock of what we have learned from this emergency situation to aim at building a sustainable and resilient supply chain embodied in the theme of this year. One important lesson has been the need to further digitalize customs operations towards paperless trade and contactless clearance as part of the renewal efforts of trade and customs system. This topic was the most frequently mentioned one at the regional consultations that the WCO has conducted this fall to identify the future focus areas. In more detail, members viewed the two fields in this respect, namely digital customs, which refers to greater automation and interoperability on the one hand, and data analytics, which covers collection security, and the use of data on the other hand. As you know, the WCO organized a technology conference earlier this month in the efforts to reduce the technological gaps between members and keep pace with the emerging technologies that would disrupt the existing way of custom business. At its opening session, we invited several heads of international organizations to discuss the role of standards in applying technology, especially keeping interoperability through several standards, including the WCO data model. This interplay of technology and standard might correspond to another lesson from the pandemic that communication and coordination is vital in ensuring recovery, where interoperability of digital systems enable various trade and transport sectors at the borders to remain well connected. Of course, the next step is that data analytics as digital technology made the abundant data available to customs, and we have to explore the huge potential of the use of data for research on the customs core business of revenue collection, trade facilitation, and protection of society. To benefit from the availability of these standards, technologies, and data, it would be crucial to develop human capacity and organization that could manage these assets. In this connection, pandemic focused us to think about adapting to the teleworking and remote working conditions, the themes that the next capacity building committee is expected to tackle. This topic is also relevant to promote the gender equality and diversity, which would in turn strengthen the resilience of customs institutions. The world is also witnessing another change in the trade system, that is the rise of regional integration, most obvious in the form of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The WCO has been closely collaborating with the AFCFTA Secretariat and other regional economic communities in supporting the creation of one market in Africa because customs plays a critical role in this respect. I would be interested in finding out what outcome emerges from the related sessions and other topics that could enrich the knowledge of customs community, and in the same vein, I would like to invite you to join the PICAL conference held online on 9th and 10th of December. To conclude, I wish you the successful conference with active participation and good deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mikuria, and thank you also for your continuous support to the World Customs community. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the pleasure to invite Mr. Sudhamulal, Director General, Mauritius Revenue Authority, to deliver his speech as host of the event. Mr. Sudhamulal is a Director General of the Mauritius Revenue Authority since 2005. He has several years of successful experience in providing fiscal, strategic, and operational leadership in revenue agencies. He has led a complete organizational transformation with the merging of 4 revenue departments into an integrated revenue administration. He continually and successfully strived to implement the tax reform program and has instilled a high-performance culture at the MRA through a new human resources framework based on performance and efficiency, along with a flattening of the organizational structure. Prior to working with the MRA, Mr. Sudhamulal worked in direct tax administration in Pakistan, progressing from Commissioner of Income Tax and Wealth Tax and Director General Withholding Taxes to Member Tax Policy and Administration. Mr. Lal also acted as the President of the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administration, Qatar, from 2009 to 2012 and from 2018 to 2021. Vice Chairman for the World Customs Organization from 2011 to 2013 and Vice Chairman of ATAF from 2016 2016 to 2020. In March 2018, Mr. Lal was elevated to the rank of Commander of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean in recognition of his contribution in the administration and collection of taxes. So, Mr. Lal, please.
Honorable Alan Ganu, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, Mr. Saif Kamaluddin, Minister of Finance, Budget and Banking Sector, Comoros, Mr. Cunio Mikura, Secretary General, WCO, Mr. Larry Liza, Director, WCO ESA ROCB, Mr. Olumo Das Srivya, Regional Development Manager, WCO ESA Region, Mr. Vivekanand Rambaran, Director Customs, Mauritius Revenue Authority, Mr. Monikam, Director Human Resource and Head of RTC Mauritius, distinguished researchers, panelists, moderators, and participants. Good morning and welcome to the third WCO ESA Regional Research Conference hosted virtually by Mauritius Revenue Authority in collaboration with the Regional Office for Capacity Building. First of all, I would like to thank Honorable Alan Ganu, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, for gracing this occasion despite his busy time schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to mention that this conference was initially planned to be held physically in 2019, but had to be postponed on several occasions due to ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. However, given the resounding success of the first two conferences, it has been agreed to go ahead with this conference virtually due to prevailing sanitary conditions. This clearly demonstrates the importance that the MRA gives to customs research, as well as the commitment for the advancement of the ESA region. Ladies and gentlemen, back in 2013, the WCO East and Southern African Regional Office for Capacity Building took the laudable initiative of launching the ESA Regional Research Program. The objective was to build institutional capacity and the body of knowledge in customs through research, while the overarching aim of the program is to enhance the region's capacity to showcase its research globally. The first WCO ESA Region Research Conference was hosted by the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority in 2014, while the second one took place in 2017 and hosted by the Regional Training Center, Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter what career field we are in, there's always more to learn. Research and development is a vital element in the learning process. It unlocks the unknowns and gives the opportunity to explore different perspectives, expands the knowledge base, and fuels a deeper understanding. It provides the latest information, new ideas, and novel problem-solving approaches. In some fields or certain organizations, research can be an essential part of success. With this perspective in mind, MRA is also a strong proponent of research, and the hosting of this research conference is one tangible example. Yet another concrete example is the institutionalization of research in our organization through the Research Policy and Planning Department. This department has the primary aim to conduct research and ensure that quality management information is provided to the board, the management team, and other key decision makers. it has almost it has always been able to contribute to the development of the organization's annual research, policy, planning, and perform monitoring of overall MRA and all departmental levels to ensure that all relevant issues are addressed and priorities for MRA as a whole are established. The department also has the responsibility to prepare the triennial corporate plan of MRA. Customs operate in a dynamic and ever-evolving environment due to changes in trade patterns, new commercial imperatives, changing aspirations of the business community, developments in technology, and major events happening worldwide. There are always new things in customs and new ways of doing things. Customs need to be innovative and adapt to changes in the environment. We have to recognize that the WCO is very proactive to changes in customs environment. Moreover, by having a dedicated unit for research, the WCO research unit in the office of the Secretary General is also testimony of the high importance that the WCO attaches to research. This unit is mandated to produce research and policy analysis on customs and international trade matters, as well as organize research conferences where academics and practitioners present their work. The WCO Picard program, officially launched in 2006, is also praiseworthy. This program aims to create a cooperation framework for customs administrations, practitioners, and academia and the institutions to work closely together on two main objectives considered as fundamental to customs reform and modernization agenda: advancement of customs-related academic research and promotion of customs professionalism. When talking about research in customs, we cannot omit to mention about the research papers regularly published by the WCO. These research papers deal with various contemporary themes and topics and provide important knowledge and guidance to customs administrations worldwide. Over the years, a series of such research or concept papers have been published on diverse and interesting subjects such as data analytics and blockchain technology in customs, regional integration, trade facilitation, supply chain security, control at borders, illicit trade, coordinated border management, single window, risk management, performance measurement, authorized economic operator, money laundering, as well as highlighting the benefits of important conventions and agreements such as the revised Kyoto Convention, Safe Framework of Standards, and the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, there's always an interesting theme for each ESA research conference based on contemporary issues. For the first conference, it focused on impacts and implication of the Trade Facilitation Agreement and the WCO marketer program to the ESA region, while the second one was themed Customs and Trade Facilitation, Building Institutional Capacity and the Body of Knowledge in Customs through Research. The theme of the current conference, which is the effect of emerging issues on the role of customs and trade, is as interesting as the previous ones. This theme concerns important emerging issues such as digital customs, data analytics, cross-border e-commerce, free trade agreements, and the impact of unforeseen situations such as COVID-19 pandemic on customs. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are meeting today for this conference, it is mainly because MRA has at heart the advancement of the ESA region. With this perspective in mind, MRA works in close collaboration with the WCO and fully assists customs administrations in the region in building their capacity to achieve their mandates. This is achieved mainly through the WCO Mauritius Multilingual Regional Training Center. Moreover, MRA has also taken leadership roles. We are currently Deputy Vice Chairman of the WCO ESA region for the next 2 years, while the head of RTC Mauritius is the chairperson of the RTC head meeting. MRA is also participating actively in the strategic working group for the formulation of the triennial ESA strategic plan 2022 to 2025. The development of an HS curriculum for countries in the region in the context of an enhanced collaboration strategy among ESA RTCs, as well as development of a risk management framework for the region. Furthermore, as Center of Excellence for Compliance and Enforcement, RTC Mauritius is playing a predominant role by offering a wide range of training programs and assistance to customs administrations in the ESA region. Some of these include the protection of IPR, the fight against illicit drug trafficking and psychoactive substances, anti-money laundering, post-control audit, and so on. RTC Mauritius has also conducted a survey to identify training needs in compliance and enforcement in the ESA region, and will soon come up with new training programs to meet the training needs of custom administrations of the ESA region. Here I would like to express my thanks and appreciation to Mr. Larry Lisa and his team for the excellent work they are doing at the ROCB in terms of coordination, collaboration, and support to member customs administration and RTCs. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to congratulate all the participants whose research papers have been selected for this conference. It's the reward of their hard work. Congratulations also to their respective supervisors for their time and guidance throughout. Besides the presentation of research papers, there will also be other interesting presentations and panel discussions by knowledgeable people from trade and commerce service. I wish you all fruitful discussion and good learning. I wish plenty of success for the third WCO ESA Research Conference. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Director General, for your speech. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor and privilege to invite Honorable Alan Ganu, Minister of Land Transport and Light Rail, and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, to deliver his keynote address. Honorable Alan Ganu is the first member for constituency number 14, Savannah and Black River in Mauritius. He has studied law at the Middle Temple and at King's College, London, and is a barrister since 1975. He has acted as lawyer and legal advisor to various trade union federations and other social organizations. He was elected member of the National Assembly continuously since 1982 for 9 occasions. He has previously been the Speaker of the National Assembly in 1982, Minister of Justice and Attorney General from 1991 to 1993, Minister of Housing from 1996 to 1997, Minister of Public Utilities from September 2000 to July 2005, Acting Minister of Fisheries as from 15 November 2004 to July 2015. So, Honorable Minister, the floor is yours.
Kamali Dini, Minister of Finance, Budget and Banking Sector. Mr. Kunyu Miku Ria, Secretary General, World Customs Organization. Mr. Sudamulal, Director General, Mauritius Revenue Authority, Mr. Larry Leza, Director, WCO ESA ROCB, Mr. Olumo da Silva, Regional Development Manager, WCO ESA Region, Mr. Vivekanand Rambaran, Director, Customs Department, MRA, all protocol observed. Good morning. It is a pleasure to be amongst you today for the third WCO ESA Regional Research Conference, virtually hosted by the Regional Training Center Mauritius of the Mauritius Revenue Authority in collaboration with the Regional Office for Capacity Building. After the success of the first two WCO ESA Regional Research Conferences hosted by the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority and RTC Kenya in 2014 and 2017, respectively, it is an honor for Mauritius to host this meeting. I commend the WCO Regional Office for Capacity Building, which I understand has left no stone unturned in making this event happen. I concur with previous speakers who have rightly stressed on the crucial importance of research, ranging from the fields of science and technology to that of customs. The COVID pandemic has further emphasized the importance of research and development and the need to discover innovative treatments, vaccines, and medicines. I laud the initiative of the MRA, which has incorporated research in its institutional framework through the Research, Policy, and Planning Department, while the WCO has a dedicated unit for research in the Office of the Secretary General. The PICARD conference and the regular research papers are laudable initiatives for the WCO, thus illustrating the importance given to customs research by the customs community. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference prompts us to reflect on the important mandates of customs and revenue authorities. Firstly, the fiscal function is a vital contribution to the government budget, a lifeblood which enables the government to support our social security and welfare systems, as well as carry out important development works in the country. Then we have the protection security mandate, which consists in ensuring the security and protection of the country against transnational crimes and acts of terrorism. Battling the scourge of illicit drugs is one of the top priorities of the government. We cannot enough emphasize the role of customs in collaboration with other authorities, such as the police, in the prevention of entry of drugs and narcotics in Mauritius. The government is providing the necessary support in terms of tools, equipment, and resources to MRA Customs and other authorities to better fight against the illicit entry of drugs and narcotics so that they are fit to deliver on this crusade. Last but not least, customs has a crucial economic function of providing trade facilitation measures for legitimate trade across the border in order to boost up import, export, and transit and promote foreign direct investment. It is essential that customs ensures integrity of the trade supply chain and promotes transparent procedures with a view to reducing cost and dwell time in the release of goods. Likewise, the government is providing the required support to the MRA in enhancing border surveillance to better fight against the trafficking of illicit drugs and narcotics. In the recent years, substantial funds have been allocated to MRA to acquire the latest tools, equipment, and technology, such as fast interceptor boats, drones, fixed and mobile X-ray scanners, procurement of additional sniffer dogs, as well as other drug detection equipment such as wireless fiber scopes, buster contraband detector, and handheld backscatter scanners and narcotics analyzer. Moreover, the government has also invested in the Integrated Customs Clearance Center for the clearance of air cargo. And the ICCC will house different border controlling authorities engaged in the clearance of goods at the airport and will bring forth the benefits of coordinated border management to governmental agencies and the trading community at large. This marks a major milestone in the facilitation of trade in Mauritius. This state-of-the-art building is expected to be operational at the airport early next year and will provide value-added services to the trading community. This one-stop shop concept is highly recommended by the WTO and the WCO, and it is noteworthy that the MRA has already embarked on its full implementation at the port. In addition, the government of Mauritius has earmarked necessary funding for the integrated single window project. This major trade facilitation project will no doubt revamp the existing electronic data interchange system, and in particular, enable the single submission of documents for processing of permits and clearance of goods. A maritime single window for the port is also in the pipeline. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Mauritius has a very keen interest in trade facilitation and has implemented a variety of measures with a view to boosting trade and investment. Some of the measures worth mentioning include the National Electronics Licensing System, a single electronic platform for business licensing, and the Mauritius Trade Easy portal, supported by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade of Mauritius. This platform aims to provide all trade-related information to the business community. Also, in the Finance Act of 2021, the Consolidated Bill of Entry for goods imported or exported by post and courier services and by manufacturers of sugar-sweetened products has been introduced. Economic operators concerned with this measure shall be making a single bill of entry for all goods imported, exported, or manufactured during the preceding month and shall pay the duty, excise duty, and taxes thereon within the 5 working days of the following month. This measure aims at reducing cost and dwell time for the economic operators. Moreover, a committee has been set up under the Economic Development Board for the proper administration of trusted trader certificates, a scheme concerning importation of a specified regulated product. In line with this measure, the importer shall not make application for permit and authorization for each and every consignment imported for specified regulated product. The consignment of imported specified regulated product shall be cleared in accordance with the requirement laid down in the Trusted Trader Certificate. Since traders are facing a slump in business during these times of COVID-19 pandemic, the government has introduced soft measures such as extension of the payment of period from 7 to 16 working days for the deferred payment scheme. Likewise, the warehousing period for bundled warehouses and Freeport has also been extended from 24 to 36 months. Ladies and gentlemen, custom authorities worldwide play a predominant role to ensure the smooth flow of goods along the supply chain. Moreover, we are all alive to the challenges faced by customs during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and national confinements. During these trying times, it was critical to ensure the smooth supply of essential goods, in particular medicines and medical equipment. We have to commend customs administrations worldwide, which, like other essential government services, have operated 24/7 during the crisis and took the timely and decisive measures to ensure supply chain and business continuity all along. Customs administration had to deploy staff from home and harness on digital processes through internet-based customs management systems. They've had to protect their staff by using the required personal protective equipment. The foresight of the WCO in establishing necessary protocols as concerns the clearance of medicines and relief consignment in times of emergency situations is also praiseworthy. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of the current conference dedicated to the effect of emerging issues on the role of customs and trade relates to important emerging issues, such as digital customs, data analytics, cross-border e-commerce, free trade agreements, and the impact of enforcing situations such as COVID-19 pandemic on customs. In this digital era, it is very essential for customs to leverage on technology for implementing effective controls and in facilitating trade through accelerated processes. This will benefit not only traders, but governments and citizens at large. One of the most recent trends in global business, especially during the period of COVID-19 pandemic, is the unprecedented growth in trade, in cross-border e-commerce, in physical goods, commonly known as e-commerce. This has revolutionized the way businesses and consumer market sell and purchase goods, providing wider choices, advanced shipping, payment, and delivery options. E-commerce has generated enormous opportunities for the global economy, providing new growth in engines, developing new trade modes, driving new consumption trends, and creating new jobs. Custom authorities worldwide have the twin objective of facilitating trade while at the same time enhancing control. To strike the right balance between these two objectives, it is vital for customs to make judicious use of the vast amount of data and information available internally and externally. The data should be collected and analyzed by using statistics, algorithms, and other mathematical tools and IT systems. Data analytics can be a very powerful tool, not only for control, but also for overall performance improvement for customs administration. One of the strategic objectives of the ESA region is to promote growth in intra-regional trade. To this end, it is imperative to create an enabling environment to facilitate the efficient movement of goods, people, and conveyances. Here, I would like to stress on the importance of ratifying various conventions and agreements to expedite the movement, release, and clearance of goods, including goods in transit, and boost trade and investment, especially intra-regional trade in the ESA region. It is important to note that as date, out of 24 ESA members, 15 members have acceded to the revised Kyoto Convention, while 19 members have already ratified the TFA. As concerns the AFCFTA agreement, it is very encouraging to note that 54 out of the 55 African countries have signed this agreement, with the exception of Eritrea. However, 38 countries have deposited their instrument of ratification. I would like to seize this opportunity to earnestly request ESA members who are yet to ratify the RTC, the TFA, and the AFCFTA to do so. Indeed, to boost intra-regional trade, it is also very important to have collaboration and the exchange of information among member countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to congratulate the RTC of Mauritius for their leadership and commitment to the advancement of the ESA region. It is very encouraging to note that the MRA, through the RTC Mauritius, is playing an active role in the region and collaborating fully with the WCO in formulating the ESA Strategic Plan 2022 to 2025, developing regional risk management compendium and facilitating the transition to HS 2022. RTC Mauritius is also providing various kinds of assistance to customs administration in the region and helping them build capacity in areas of customs compliance and enforcement through customized training programs. Congratulations also to the participants of selected research papers and their respective supervisors. This conference has brought together many professionals and knowledgeable people from customs and trade who will be involved in interesting presentations and panel discussions. To end, I sincerely hope that you will all learn a lot from this two-day conference. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for giving a broad view on the current and future role of customs administrations.
Ladies and gentlemen, the dignitaries present, the directors general and the commissioners, and everyone joining us today. I am happy to present this presentation on return to normalcy and the effectiveness of online engagements in East and Southern Africa, which were really heightened as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This particular call was given to us by the ESA Governing Council that asked us to take on to this initiative. And I am sharing a presentation on the same for you to look at as a prelude to the discussions that we are just about to have. These are the outcomes of the survey done by the ROCB on the return to normalcy and the impact of virtual engagements in East and Southern Africa. It compares the situation as it is now with how it was at about this time last year and around May at the beginning of the pandemic. One of the things that we started by asking us, ladies and gentlemen, is what is the mode of interaction between our external and internal customers? And at the moment, nearly 90% of the region is using a blended approach to meetings, either that is physical or virtual. At about this time, about the same amount was purely blended. But we now have an opportunity, or we now see a case where most meetings are either physical or blended. We also tried to check where are customs officials and revenue and customs administrations working from at this time. At about this time last year, and specifically in May last year, at the heat and heart of the pandemic, we had nearly 50% working from home, which went up between 50 to 80%, and only about 20% working in the offices. But now we no longer have people who administrations that are working exclusively from home. We have people who may be working from home, but it's a blended approach. We have administrations that work in turns and work in shifts, or have certain days that they work and certain days that they do not. But we are happy to note that nearly the entire region has gone back to work. Nevertheless, there's still a 50% approach to physical presence at the office and a 50% or 56% to a blended approach. Largely, the physical approach to work location is now more than ever at about 9/10. We were also requested to check the effectiveness of virtual meetings and engagements such as these. And we noted that everyone believes that at least the meetings are moderately effective to highly effective. Nobody believes that they are less effective, but we only see about a quarter of the region believing that such meetings are highly effective. You can already begin to see there is a sense for more and more physical engagements, especially because of the nature of work in customs. We attempted to check how many people are traveling for official missions either within the region or across the world internationally. And we have 2/3 of our countries now traveling internationally. This has improved from 0 to 1/3 to 50% and now 2/3. But we still have about 1/3 of the region that hasn't permitted their customs officials to travel internationally. We have seen that countries and regions such as the ESA have actually been traveling for much longer within the partner states. And right now in the region, we are also seeing more and more meetings taking place. But as you know, ladies and gentlemen, we normally have physical meetings that we host in the customs world. And so how many of us are hosting physical meetings? It's about the same number as those who are traveling. So 2/3 of the region is now hosting physical meetings, except 1/3 that isn't hosting. We have countries in the recent past that have seen surges again in COVID-19 cases. They are still hosting physical meetings, but all administrations have really enhanced their various Ministry of Health protocols in managing this pandemic. We also checked what is the preference for capacity building missions in East and Southern Africa. And about 7 out of 10 administrations prefer a blended approach, nearly 70% of the region. Why? Because that is it. Remember, 1/3 of the region are not able to meet physically, but 2/3 are able. Nevertheless, when we check the physical presence and the virtual presence and preferences, more still prefer physical meetings as opposed to virtual meetings for capacity building missions. One example that we got is, for example, you are giving a training or a capacity building mission to a country on textiles. It's very difficult to look at material or textile online and know whether it's cotton or polyester or nylon. For instance, my suit, you are not able to know which material it is. And so this is why there is also increased feeling that certain specific and technical capacity building activities are best done with a physical approach. Directors General, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, we have been conducting online trainings the last 2 years, more than ever before. And we also tried to measure the effectiveness of these online trainings and the tools we checked that are being used for these online trainings. Incidentally, they are the usual tools that have always been used for post-training surveys and questionnaires and the different tests that relate to training. Nevertheless, we asked our members, what really do you feel about the effectiveness of online trainings? Remember that there is a difference between meetings and trainings, which are ideally capacity building activities. Again, here, there are now more people feeling that online trainings are less effective compared to online missions and meetings such as this one because of the technical bit and sometimes the demonstrative purposes that are required. The same amount of people feeling that they are highly effective is the same number of people feeling that they are ineffective, but largely a greater percentage feels that they are either moderately effective or less effective. So what we see here is that we need to check every training that comes, does it really need a physical presence while adhering to the ministries of health or public health or departments of health protocols that are in the different countries. This particularly is to the management of the customs administrations and the private sector. We tried to assess what are the devices that most officials and officers are using for virtual meetings. We all know anyway, but up to 9 over 10 are using laptops. 50% are still using desktops. So this was one of the things that contributed to the difficulties of online meetings because nearly 70% of the administrations had desktops. And it was very difficult to work from home by moving your desktop from the office because maybe it's connected to the local area network. And so more people prefer to use laptops, and many are actually using their personal laptops. There is very little use for tablets. There is a little more use of smartphones. We normally see people joining meetings such as this one from their phones while in traffic, while in parks, while moving. But what this shows us that the administrations need to now invest less on the physical desktop computers and invest more on laptops. Towards the end of this presentation, ladies and gentlemen, we checked what challenges customs officials, the private sector, and everyone else is facing in conducting the virtual meetings. The biggest challenge at 93% is keeping everyone motivated. Most of you have their cameras off right now. Probably someone has stepped out to the washrooms. Someone is in another meeting and listening to us, you know yourself. And so it's very difficult to keep everyone fully engaged, considering that most of our meetings have people turning off their cameras. We also found a challenge in the region that we have grown through over the years towards a high level of positivity in access to technologies. I said earlier that most of our computers were linked to the local area network, and they needed to be reconfigured to enable remote work. And so we are having the challenge of access to technology. It's gotten better, but we have seen as an unintended positive outcome of the conference, greater investment in ICT in the East and Southern Africa region. And so we finally checked the support that members find most useful in online engagements. Ladies and gentlemen, most of you are on WhatsApp, and you normally see a lot of videos shared on WhatsApp, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes. And as powerful as they can be, that is the way many people are preferring. That if you are doing trainings and the capacity building missions, and you can also do small clips and share with them, they will be able to see these more. So this is what many people seem to prefer. And of course, there has been greater investment in professional development, especially online courses. The World Customs Organization has, over the last 2 years, even built more and more online courses on trade facilitation, on issues of gender, issues and matters such as compliance and facilitation, the revenue package, and even the organizational package. So these are the main areas that many people are looking at, alongside websites that are usually more often updated and webinars that will allow facilitators to share challenges and ideas. I'm not talking about the normal webinars, but just a gathering of the different facilitators. That largely is our presentation, and we hope that as we join this panel to hear more on what the countries are doing as we gear, and the WCO as well, we are honored to have the director with us today to talk about the return to normalcy. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And we now welcome our moderator to invite us into the upcoming panel on the same topic. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Larry Lisa, for your presentation. We will now move to the panel discussions, and which will be moderated by Mr. Gumani Mujeri of South Africa. So Mr. Gumani Mujeri is learning and development expert working in the South African Revenue Service. He is in charge of people development in Customs and Excise. He is also responsible for optimization of RTC South Africa's role in the region, as well as the implementation of the regional RTC strategy. In his 20 years of service in the administration, he has held various operational management roles in the Customs and Border Management Division, 6 years of which was spent on people development as well as driving the implementation of the regional RTC strategy. Mr. Mujeri plays an active role in capacity building and development initiatives both nationally and in the WCO family. He holds a master's degree in international customs law from Canberra University, Australia. So welcome, Mr. Mujeri, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Program Director. We know that COVID-19 pandemic came onto us like a thief in the middle of the night, unaware and without notice. And that proved as a test to the customs administrations and the trade community, a test on our agility as well as the resilience of customs. As we go into our discussions on return to normalcy, I would like to introduce my panelists. I've got a panel of 3 members, and I will quickly introduce you to them individually. The first panel member is Mr. Tael Kang. Tael Kang is currently the Director of Capacity Building Directorate in the WCO. Mr. Tael Kang passed higher civil service examination and joined Korea Customs Service year in after Korea Customs in 1995. His professional career has spanned a variety of major customs areas, including customs clearance, post-audit, customs computerization, and international cooperation for 23 years in Korea Customs. From September 2017, he has taken up the position of Director General in Information and International Affairs Bureau of Korea Customs, and he has continued to modernize customs administration and been hosting various capacity building activities designed for developing members. Throughout his career with Korea Customs, Mr. Kang has consistently demonstrated his commitment to customs modernization and capacity building to ensure trade facilitation and security. In 2019, he was elected as the Director of Capacity Building Directorate at the WCO. And he has been especially trying to introduce new technology-based capacity building for members, which includes data analytics, virtual reality assisted training, and online customs training. Welcome, Mr. Tael Kang. Next, I will introduce our next panelist, Mr. Laikana Zafi Vanona, the Director General in Madagascar. He's the current Director General of Customs of Madagascar. Zafi Vanona Ernest Laikana is a visionary manager and leader, paying particular attention to the principle of accountability, which he considers to be one of the fundamental principles of the administration. He's a holder of a doctorate in economic sciences from the University of Antananarivo. He also has a professional master in economic policy management, distinguished by the World Bank, and a diploma of advanced studies in customs administration. He has completed the International Visitor Leadership Program of the Office of Educational and Cultural Affairs of the United States Department of State, and has also benefited from several scholarships and internships awarded by the World Customs Organization, the World Organization of Customs, and by the Chinese government. After several years of experience in the private sector, he entered the public sphere in order to breathe new life into the Malagasy public administration and actively participate in the emergence of the country by contributing his achievements and putting his professionalism into practice. He thus started in the customs administration as an inspector. He was then promoted to the first head of offices to culminate in the function of Director General. Being a person of integrity and confidence, Zafi Vanona Ernest Laikana advocates respect for ethics within his administration and focuses on its modernization to make it a showcase administration. Our third panelist is our colleague from Eswatini, Gugu Treasure Dlamini Zwane, a mother to 3 beautiful girls, works for the Eswatini Revenue Services as a customs modernization, reform, and international liaison. She further supports the administration and operations of the Commissioner's Office. She began her customs career in 2000 and counting 21 years of experience to date. She has spent the last 10 years dealing with international trade and customs matters, working closely with the regional economic groupings, international organizations such as UNCTAD, WCO, World Trade Organization, and many others. She holds an executive MBA and a master in customs law from the University of Münster. She's also an outgoing person and relates easily with everyone around her. Thank you very much, Gugu. You're welcome. We will now go into our discussion of the day. And our colleagues here will take a few questions and they will provide clarity on some of the interesting and emerging issues happening within the space of customs and trade. This is with regards to the return to normalcy and impact of virtual engagements following the COVID-19 pandemic. And I will put the first question to you, Director, Mr. Telkang. And the question that I would like you to share with the trade community and the customs administration, as well as those who are joining us online, is that under this pandemic, it was very hard to provide capacity building programs to the members because of travel restrictions. To overcome this challenge, what kind of efforts did you as the WCO make so far?
Thank you, Mr. McGarry, a moderator. I hope that my voice is clear to all of you. Is it clear? Thank
yes,
you.
100%.
Okay. So as I was introduced, my name is Tail Kang. I'm in charge of the capacity building of the WCO. So it's my big pleasure to join this the very valuable the conference. So to answer my question, to answer for the first question, as you know, since March 2020, because of the pandemic, all those the physical mission delivery or training opportunities were not possible. So under this the situation, the WCO they changed our mode swiftly from the classical offline mode to online mode, because to overcome this kind of the disaster in terms of a training opportunity loss, then we had to do something. And of course, the first it was a little bit hard to transfer to the new mode, but after we adjusted to the new environment for the WCO and for the customs members, and we provide several hundred online missions and activities to our members since the pandemic occurred. If I give you some more the detailed information about what we have done so far, and these are the following. First of all, we made the WCO guidelines for the virtual training, because it was the first time for all of us to experience this kind of disaster. So we needed some kind of guidelines to lead us to the better way of method of giving the online and activities and online missions. So the guidelines, I hope that it was useful not only for the WCO, but for our the member officials, member customs. And secondly, I think that all of our member the customs know that the e-learning platform of the WCO is called as CLICK. So we upgraded the e-learning platform so that we can guarantee a more efficiency for the better the training opportunities. And thirdly, we upgraded the programs. And for example, there was a programs based on the Flash version, which was not supported anymore by the software companies. So we converted these the Flash version to HTML version, so that there is no the stop or absence for the customs members to enjoy or experience the training and the opportunity. And of course, we developed new programs, and including data analytics training program, and we updated existing programs also. And we also hired additional e-learning assistant officer to support our members. And in addition to this kind of the effort, we also provided online accreditation workshop for experts. So I know that many of our the member customs need more experts, accredited experts, for a better efficiency of their training. So we didn't stop giving this kind of accreditation workshop through online. So we provided the online workshop, accreditation workshop for e-commerce and free zone. Of course, we are planning to provide more opportunities for the accreditation workshops in the next year and in the very near future. And lastly, we developed the virtual reality assisted training program, which means that by using this program, the customs officials don't have to go to the training facility or to airport or port for the real trainings, because it provides something real-like, almost real-like experience to the officials. So by providing the programs and then the online activities, I hope that there was a big benefit to the members. And during the pandemic, well, I found that the member customs usage of e-learning has sharply increased. In some cases, the training effect was better than physical meeting, because of easy access and the cost and time saving. I believe. And we did not stop our effort for capacity building, so that the conversion of a mode contributed the keeping a normalcy of our support to the members, I believe, and I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Telking, for quite a number of important issues that you have raised, which we take note of, and including the support programs such as the data analytic. I hope people take advantage of this offering where they're able to do this online through the Click platform. The next question to you, Mr. Director, is that the WCO has introduced two crucial projects, Bakuda supporting customs with data analytics and virtual reality and assisted training. I think you touched a little bit on this, but I would like you maybe to expand a bit more. Could you please tell us a little bit more about this and how they will help us return to normalcy?
Thank you, moderator, Mr. Gary. Your second question is about the Bakuda project and the the virtual reality assisted training program. So yes. If I give us very brief introduction about the Bakuda project, it's a project that to help members to build capacity of data analytics. So it's a collaboration with academia and the research institute and our members. So if I give you some more detailed information about the Bakuda project, there are some projects, but if I give give you some the examples of the activities that the Bakuda project has done. The first one is that we the Bakuda project made the data analytics framework. So because I know that this is data analytics is a very hot topic for all the customs officials, customs members, and customs community, but we don't know how to get there, how to get to the data analytics oriented on the customs administration and etc. So we made the data analytics and the framework so that it can lead us to the better data analytics and oriented and data analytics and based on the customs administration. And the Bakuda project also performed the awareness raising and the seminars and workshops to our the member customs, including the ESA region. And another thing I want to introduce for the Bakuda project is that the Bakuda project made many the algorithms, which is based on the artificial intelligence. Of course, there are many examples, but the most representative algorithm is the data algorithm, which is focused on detecting the undervalue problems. You know, the undervalue is the big headache for all the customs community. So using this algorithm, it's very easy to detect the undervalue the situation and the value case. And another thing is that this is still on the pilot testing period, but it's a HS recommendation and the algorithm. So this means that using this algorithm, this artificial intelligence-based algorithm gives you this recommended and HS numbers to the customs officials. So without a big knowledge or experience in the HS area, the customs officials can get the right HS number very easily and very efficiently. These kind of algorithms are based on artificial intelligence. So with this algorithm, if you provide your customs data, then this algorithm, will launch by itself, and it gives you the not perfect, but the very efficient result for detecting the undervalue problem, or gives you very the accurate HS numbers to in the customs and the clearance procedure. So these algorithms are provided, and we will make more the algorithms and provided to the members. And another thing the Bakuda project is doing is that we are providing the many the opportunities for the education and training. Of course, now if you visit the WCO the e-learning platform Click, then you will find two courses about the data analytics. The first one is the basic the beginner course, and the second one is the intermediate course. Of course, the beginner course is provided in English, French, and Arabic, Spanish, and by the end of this year, Russian will be provided for these this program. So I'm trying to delete the language barrier for our the members. And the intermediate course is also a little bit advanced course, which will give you the enhanced knowledge about the data analytics. And in addition to this online the courses, I'm planning to provide the offline the courses for all of our members. Soon, the invitation letter will be distributed to all members, inviting your promising customs officials to get some an opportunity of learning the data analytics in the physical base. So with this kind of the training and the education opportunity, then I hope that these will be very beneficial to making your customs the data analytics oriented the mechanism and the infrastructure. So that was the introduction of the Bakuda project. I'm not sure whether I'm too long, but so if I give you a very brief explanation about the virtual reality assisted training. So this is the training program which gives you the experience, the real like the training opportunity. I know that you know about what is a virtual reality technology, because it's we can see in the gaming industry and then maybe in the tourism industry, but we applied this technology to our customs, our training program. So you don't have to go to the training facility, or you don't have to go to airport or port to get trained. So if you wear the headset like this, and then if you have a handheld controller, and with some more support of the more powerful computer, and you can enjoy your real like the training at home or at office. So this kind of the program the facility will be beneficial to our customs members. So in conclusion, I think it is a very good tool to continue the training the program, which can help us to return to normal situations. So that is to say, no absence of a training, even in the disaster like COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for such detailed information. One thing that we taking from your presentation, Mr. Tell, is that the WCO is using all energy to bring about innovation and the usage of technology in the facilitation of trade, as well as enforcement. We look forward also to the pilot on HS recommendation that we have spoken about, which will assist officers to get accurate HS numbers for commodities under clearance. I want to believe that also the virtual reality is another platform that I encourage members to take advantage of it and get the true benefits of what it has to offer. I do have, in fact, another question for you, Mr. Etel, but for now I will pause it. I will get back to you to answer this question. What I would like also to encourage is that everybody who's viewing us on different platforms, you are more than allowed to type your question on the chat box so that we can make efforts to attend to your questions. Thank you very much. For now, we'll go to Madagascar. Mr. Laikana.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. The question that we have for you is that Madagascar is one of the countries that have kept the COVID cases very low compared to the rest, with a mere 43,000 cases and just under 1,000 deaths. Did Malagasy Customs have to adjust its operations to ensure continued delivery of service? And on that note, share also with us, what is the situation like now?
Yeah, thank you so much. So Madagascar is the one of the country who the rate of the COVID is relatively low.
I seem to be losing your audio, Mr. Laikana. If you can check your connectivity properly. Whilst we're getting him sorted, we'll proceed to Swatini. We know that there has been quite a very low provision of vaccines in Africa and the East and Southern Africa region in general. But nevertheless, Eswatini has vaccinated just over 20% of its population, which is higher than the regional average. The regional average in this case is just less than 10%. How did Eswatini manage to get this far? And maybe in responding to the question, also share with us if Eswatini customs officials has been considered as frontline workers in this exercise.
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. Good morning, distinguished participants and all protocol observed. Allow me first to start on behalf of Eswatini Revenue Services, and kindly note that we've changed our name. We're in the process of rebranding, but we'll talk about that the next time, not today. Allow me to congratulate the director of the ROCB, Mr. Larry Leza. Congratulate his team. Congratulate also our dear friends and colleagues from the Mauritius Revenue Authority for organizing such a professional and such a beautiful event for us today. Chair, moderator, it is really an honor for Eswatini to be invited to participate in this beautiful event. Chair, just to get back to the question that you've just posed to me, of course, I can say that this success story can be attributed to the way the government approached the vaccination program in Eswatini. At the beginning of the vaccination program, the government identified the so-called the frontliners, which mainly included health workers, elderly persons, security forces who were in charge of enforcing the COVID regulations. And of course, this group also included officers working at the borders and other government agencies, and also other groups who were also identified as essential workers. The government further conducted engagements with individual organizations, prioritizing the frontline workers which also gave officers an opportunity to ask questions and clarify some of the myths and beliefs, behind, the vaccinations. Also, what the government undertook to do was to create massive awareness amongst all stakeholders, and not only just targeting urban areas, but also targeting rural areas where there were massive engagements also with the community leaders, in the context of the health promotion also in general. The planning phase prioritizing those highly at risk, such as nurses, as well as people with compromised health, such as elderlies. I also just want to share with the meeting that the first vaccination batch received positive uptake. Everybody was actually looking forward to the vaccination. What also makes this kind of a success story is also the decentralization of the vaccination centers. The vaccination centers are located both at rural community centers and as well as facilities around the country.
You can proceed.
Okay, thank you. And also the vaccination site, as we speak, I'm scheduled to take my vaccination at 12 noon Eswatini time today, because there is also a vaccination center within the ERS, which is normally after 2 weeks. So basically, the decentralization and the availability of the vaccinations, everywhere has also just contributed to these positive figures. The other thing is that, people really wanted to return to normalcy, such as entertainments and tourist attraction activities, such as football stadiums and, a number of events. There's currently a big event that is being organized in country. And it is one condition or a prerequisite to participate in this event is to have a vaccination. If you don't have a vaccination certificate, you will not be allowed, because they are both protecting you and they're protecting also the people around you. And what we have noted with this big event that is upcoming is that it has also assisted the youth, because the youth was not really very keen in taking up the vaccinations, but with wanting to participate in all these events, they are now
Considering.
Just taking the vaccinations. Yes. We've also noted that in some places, some employers have also kind of forced their employees. For example, we have one outlet, Kentucky Fried Chicken, as a means of protecting their employers and their employees, and also the customers that come in. So for those who wanted to return back to work, they were supposed to take the vaccination. And Chair, as I finalize, we also have kind of about 3 types of vaccines now that are available in Eswatini. So people now are able to, to choose which kind of vaccine they want to take. So that has also assisted the process, because you'd recall that at the beginning of all this, there was a lot of myths around the vaccinations, the types of vaccinations, and so forth. So now with this diversity of vaccines that are available, we have seen increased uptakes of the vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you very much for outlining how the government and the administration went on about to ensuring the achievement of a high vaccination rate. You spoke about a positive vibe in terms of uptake. They're working with the community leaders, which I think is one of the key important things, decentralizing the centers for vaccination and taking them to the people, to the communities and to the places of work, and ensuring that those who would like to enjoy the entertainment spaces and big gatherings, they're able to produce proof of vaccination. There is a question from the chat here which says, how is the vaccine supply in Eswatini? Does the government have enough to cover the entire population? So that is one question. Are you able to react to that question, Gugu?
Yes, thank you, moderator. What I can say is that the vaccination is currently available. Though I'm not an official from the Ministry of Health, I may
Yes.
not be able to say that it's enough for the entire population. But all I know that if you want to get a vaccine, you can get it. Anyone who wants to go and get vaccinated today definitely can get a vaccine. There is also issues of population advantages as well. So that also maybe assists in easing the pressure around the vaccines as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my next question to you is also one question which is close to my heart. And let's talk about a little bit about cross-border trade. Eswatini is a signatory to a number of trade agreements as a member of SACU, SADC, as a member of COMENSA. One of these is the Protocol on Trade Goods and COMENSA Simplified Trade Regime. How have the women traders in cross-border benefited from these trade regimes? And how have you as the administration been supporting them?
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. What I can say here is that, first of all, the ERS classifies importers. We have formal and informal traders. And you would agree with me that women basically form a large percentage or a majority of the informal trade, and hence do benefit from a number of simplified trade regimes, amongst which the COMESA initiative would be included once its implementation is complete. I'll just highlight a few that we currently have as we are working towards completing the implementation of the COMESA initiative. We have a simplified customs declaration, which we refer to as a Form E, where women traders are allowed to make a combined declaration where the hawkers consolidate their goods into one form. The only information that is required in the form is the name of the importer, the passport number, and the value of goods, which makes the process very much simplified for informal traders and especially women. Also, women traders, they benefit from the personal allowance, where goods that are approximately $100 are not subjected to taxes. And there is already a discussion towards increasing this personal allowance, which is applicable to Swatis that enter the country. Women traders, they also benefit from the threshold for cash declaration, which is approximately $1,500. They are not subjected to border processes for declaring such cash amounts at the border, because most of them, they don't really carry like formal banking cards. The government has also, during COVID, the government also has been subsidizing COVID tests for hawkers, which is valid for 14 days as well. And Chair, we also have a VAT refunds program, which allows an importer with a qualifying tax invoice not to pay when he or she enters with goods under an MOU for administrative refund scheme between the ERS and SARS. The ERS then collects the VAT payable from SARS and after importation. This also eases cash flow burdens for importers as they only submit the invoice to the ERS, and the administration then undertakes the process to get the money as a refund from SARS to settle the import VAT liability. So this is just one of the best ways that we cooperate with our neighbor South Africa through SARS to just enable facilitation of both formal and informal traders, under which women traders benefit as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the initiatives around ensuring that the women traders involved in cross-border trade, they collaborate and cooperate in ensuring that they've got single declarations for their different individual cargoes, and that simplifies the declaration and clearance processes. You also mentioned the personal allowances and the thresholds of cash declarations, which makes it easy for people to move and be able to effect payments in their involvement of trade, as well as the subsidy of COVID tests and the VAT refund program that is the cash flow balance of traders. And the last one I have for you is, what is Eswatini's story regarding virtual meetings and online capacity building sessions, and is it working for you?
Chair, I think this has really been an interesting experience, which came with both some benefits and challenges as well. You would recall that there was a need to practice social distancing, such that about 80% of the staff were allowed to work from home. So then this compelled the organization to now develop what we call working from home guidelines, which were developed and adopted as part of the organization's policies. These guidelines detailed meeting etiquettes in order to ensure full participation and professionalism in using the remote platforms. The IT team quickly enabled the use of platforms for conducting virtual meetings, such as Microsoft Teams, which is more of our official platform we use for our virtual meetings, Zoom and others. Furthermore, supervision of work was based on clearly defined work plans with targets, performance standards, as well as monitoring of performance of teams who were working virtually. Virtual meetings and trainings have enabled a wider participation by teams in sessions that may not be attended in large numbers, which is one of the advantages of the virtual meetings, because now you can have as much people as you wish, so long as you have a computer, you have a connection, then they can participate in the training. This also has enabled the ERS to participate in international forums, despite the lockdown with travel restrictions like we are doing today. We could be in Mauritius, but we are still able to participate in this beautiful and professionally organized event. The organization has also made significant savings as well on traveling expenses, which have been redirected to other areas which requested funding, during these trying times. We also just noted that meetings became more tenuous as people who work from home and need not face transport and traffic-related challenges, thus saving on time as well. So most of the time, meetings were punctual and people were available. Moderator, also allow me just to touch on some of the challenges as well, being a small country, from a developing country. Some of the challenges included high internet costs, poor connectivity, such that the use of videos could not be supported. So most of the time you'd find that people are supposed to switch off, their videos so that they can minimize on their data. And the disadvantage with this is that it leads to low levels of interaction and compromised communication as body language is missed in virtual meetings. Sometimes you just miss a smile, you miss a nod in a meeting to be sure that what you are saying does make sense. So, the non-enablement of videos was not allowing all this to happen. And at the beginning, the long meetings tend to reduce effective participation, as people would simply sit and remain inactive for prolonged times, and it took a while to adopt the best practices, taking the recommended frequent, rest breaks, which is something that we adopted as we proceeded with this. And Chair, working from home also tended to blur the line, between working hours, and family times. I remember that at times you'd hear kids now starting to ask you, what time do you leave office? Can you switch off the computer and so forth? And lastly, Chair, I just want to say that, going forward, we have just noted that, that the blended approach also to training, to meetings will be a new normal. Because if you want more people to participate, you'll definitely go virtual. But if you want to target a few people, a few individuals, maybe you will be going for the physical meetings.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I can just stop here now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gugu, for such detailed response. You highlighted some of the challenges, but as well as opportunities that you have taken advantage of in as far as virtual working and hybrid working approaches is concerned, and how the individuals are benefiting and how the organization is optimizing on the opportunities that are presented to us. And some of them you have highlighted, time saving of course, increased participation, targeted interventions, and so on. We thank you very much for that response. And on that note, we'll go back to Madagascar, to my colleague, Mr. Laikana. Mr. Laikana, we lost you somewhere in the process, and you had just clarified with us the situation in Madagascar in terms of how did the customs operations adjust its operations to ensure that there is continued service delivery? And you shared with us the current situation. Can you quickly summarize in English? But I'm advised that the translation is also back, but if you can just give a quick summary, and then we can go to the next question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry it was cut for a few seconds because it was I am in the parliamentary session right now for financial law, so it's not easy, but it's a real pleasure to be here today. The thing, yeah, the what's happened is on the COVID period, it was hard for us to manage. Especially about the especially about all of the facilities. We know Madagascar is it's one of the country, one of the poor countries, so the facilities in terms of health is very limited. We had a lot of colleagues who had COVID, and we had to take care of our colleagues and then offer at the same time the best service we could. We had a lot of the needs, especially with about the health goods, all of the medicine and the equipment. So we have to release right away. and they have to adopt and the quick procedures in emergency state. So it was hard, but at the end, with 1,000 deaths and more than 40,000 cases of COVID, with the effort that the government made, and customs was one of the part of that, because you have to stay in the border and the release of the goods in the very difficult, critical periods. But we made it. We had to be there to provide assistance for our colleagues in terms of even medicine, the vaccine. We have to be there to provide some transportation, and they can be on a group of the customs facilities. We have to provide all of the equipment. They can work from home. We have to change our way to proceed in terms of control. At the end, we have our incomes in terms of the revenue only decrease in 20% based on our target. And then I'm saying all of the rate of the case of COVID, it's not, I mean, the custom was there to contribute on our side, but it's a effort as well of the government to provide all of the facilities and adjust the way and handle in a very right way the COVID. So for custom, it was quite difficult, but we raised at the end with a very, relatively good result in terms of our process, our operation at the customs, and also on the COVID in general.
Thank you very much. So you're saying in summary, you have adjusted your working procedures. You have ensured that there is agility and collaboration between different government stakeholders, and support your staff, much as the officials suffered quite a number of infections. And as things stand now, how is the situation, if you can just say in brief?
Yeah, so the situation is getting better. We just opened up our border 1 week ago, 1 or 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
We are aware about the risks, because Mauritius is not far from us, and the government just I think decide on the 27th of this month to close temporary, to suspend, not to close, but suspend temporary the border. But we in general inside of the island, it's getting better. It's we don't really hear about the case of COVID. We are working like everything is normal. We still remain very attentive and monitoring all of the case, and just being very careful, because when we start to go back again, and Madagascar cannot have the third wave, it's going to be hard to manage. But for now, everything is normal. People are working daily basis like normal. All of the persons start to increase at the customs. We start to reach the highest level of incomes in terms of the monthly record. If on the COVID period, some of manufacture was shut down, but there with the facilities that the government give, with those manufacturers start to be open again, and then just to see forward and like going after COVID. So the thought is having the thoughts after COVID right now, but I'm not saying it's like a zero, but basically on the record, we basically don't have the record of COVID right now, and based on statistic, and the work at the customs is going back to the normal, with especially with those adjustment procedures. We still have a virtual meeting, even in local and land, with all of those office of custom around the country. but we are operating like in a normal period.
Thank you very much. So in summary, you are returning back to normality, but with a strict look and observation towards the re-emergence of the COVID-19 infections or yes, increase in COVID-19 infections. Now, as Madagascar is one of our island nations, what are the major challenges and opportunities island nations face? And this is beyond Madagascar, but we can talk also in representation of other island states. The major challenges and opportunities that the islands face in light of emerging issues in customs and trade, and how can we address these challenges?
Yeah, so Madagascar is an island. It's a very big island with 27 million of a population. I think the main challenge is we basically import most of our needs. So we are very dependent on importation. We have 6-7 ports international ports being operational, and we have a very large border, so it's very hard to control them. We have a very hard time to control, especially with all of this trafficking, our resources. We have some gold was caught in South Africa, some was caught in Mauritius, some was caught in Seychelles. It's a big challenge for us. The operation change, the operation mode change. Some of them just take doing the trafficking from the airports. We put some high control on that, so we could control those trafficking. And lately, they operate from the small boats with the catamaran and go to the island sister. That's the main challenge for us to control our border. But based on the importation, so we have to be aligned on the policy of the government, trying to produce all of the basic needs, the primary necessity. So the custom have to adjust on that, to change our tariffication policy, so give less taxes on the entrance, and then to try to help our private sector, and the rest is we have to be aligned on the LKC just to facilitate our procedure to give a very low time release, and then especially to secure our income, because the half of the income of the country is based on the customs. So we have to be there and to use all of those tools and all of those way for us to secure the incomes of customs. So basically, I think all of the islands, mostly securing the border is one of the big challenge, but also try to be able to to produce all sorts of the main necessity is also one of the goals. And then obviously we cannot pretend to be a part of the rest of the world, and then when the rest of the goods have to be imported from all of the country, also the country depends on the resource of the customs, but we have to be aligned on the policy as well of the government to make the economy stronger.
Thank you very much. You have highlighted, I think, some of the challenges is securing the borders, ensuring that the time release, turnaround time is shortened. And one of the benefits in ensuring that those are addressed is because most of the island nations, they depend on the revenue that is collected by the customs authorities. And as such, has a ripple effect in terms of making provision to the needs of the citizen and making sure that the fiscus is secured. Thank you very much for that response. The last one from me to you, Mr. Director, without putting pressure on you, you know that last year, 2020, the Governing Council was supposed to meet in Madagascar, and this had not happened because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you think there's an opportunity for us to meet physically next year?
Yeah, of course, it will be a pleasure to meet physically. We are expected to host the conference in 2020 because it was the celebration as well of our 2 century of the customs. But
Okay.
the COVID changed a lot of things. I think for this year, 2021, it's a little bit late because we are on the end of the year. But next year, of course, hopefully all of the border will be open, and it will be a pleasure for us, and we'll be honored to host again the next conference.
Thank you very much. I think everybody's looking forward to that. And thank you very much, Director, for your time. The last question I have for you, Mr. Telkang, the Director of Capacity Building Directorate based in Belgium. And this is also one of the questions that is in everybody's lips. Much as we know that the WCO has taken quite a number of initiatives to ensure that missions continue to happen, training and facilitation continues to happen in hybrid forms and virtually. But we know that it is human nature to connect. When humans connect physically, there is that exchange of energy, which cannot be replaced by virtual connections. And the question is there still an opportunity that we meet again in Brussels in person, or that won't be necessary anymore?
Yeah, thank you, moderator, Mr. Megri. So yeah, as you talked, of course, our physical meeting is very valuable because our online meeting cannot replace our physical meeting. So because when we meet physically, then we can shake hands and we can have hugs, and then we can communicate our ideas very freely. So I think I really hope as you do in the very near future we will have a physical meeting. But recently, of course, we were preparing to start the physical meeting, because we thought that things were becoming better and better. So in the Policy Commission in the December, so actually we were preparing in the hybrid format. So the person who are available for the physical meeting can attend the meeting. If it's not possible, then we can connect that through this online the connection. That was a hybrid, the concept of hybrid the meeting. But very recently, as you have already heard from the news or the media, that the things in the Europe is becoming much worse. I don't know. So that's why we are thinking about, and we are checking the condition, and we are checking the Belgian government's the instruction about not lockdown, but anyway, the restriction about those the meetings. So it's very hard to say when we can meet physically in the Brussels WCO headquarters. But under any case, the support to the members should not be stopped. So as a director of capacity building of the WCO, I will try my best efforts to continue our the support and the assistance to our member customs, especially in terms of the capacity building. So as I said in the very beginning, that we already developed some kind of virtual reality training the program. The device is already installed in the WCO headquarters. So if you have a chance to visit WCO headquarters, the building, then I strongly recommend to experience what is the virtual reality the training program. So of course, the other of the algorithms I already told you, those algorithms, and we will make more efforts to produce more algorithms, and we will provide more opportunity to get the chance of the training for how to deal with these algorithms. So we will continue to provide more opportunities for the training and other the chances to discuss how we can improve these devices and the facilities and the algorithms better. So I will try my best to support our member customs. But of course, well, as I told you, the physical meeting is better than the online meeting. But after we experience some kind of online activities and online trainings, there are some merits because, as I told you, we can save our time and cost, and we can connect to the app at home and office without any transportation service. So there are some merits for the online. So maybe my the prediction is that even after the pandemic is over, we will use the online and offline the activities and the education and training and the methods parallelly. So maybe mostly in physical meeting, but in some cases, online the activity and mission and training might be more efficient. So I believe that after this pandemic, so we will keep the two tracks and the approach and the physical and the online and in appropriate the proportion and the manner. So anyway, there will all those the facilities or the programs will be distributed to the members for free, especially via virtual reality training, and the algorithms all will be distributed for free to the members. So I hope that every member will get the benefit and will enjoy the benefit of this technology in the future. So I hope that, of course, I'm not sure when we can meet physically again in Brussels, but I really hope that in the very near future, we will make some meeting in the Brussels and we can shake hands and we can hug each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Kang, the Director in the WCO Capacity Building Directorate. I appreciate your time. For me, it has been a pleasure to have these discussions with yourself, as well as Gugu Zwana from Eswatini, and our colleague from Madagascar. From me, that's it. We don't have any further questions from the chat box, and I am therefore more than happy to give the program back to the program director. Thank you very much and all of the best.
So we are back for the second part of our session. And for this part, I'm excited to actually introduce our presentations from our researchers who have actually had worked for months in preparing their papers together with their supervisors. I was part of the supervisory team. And the presentations that we'll have are actually focused on three themes. And so the first theme is actually looking at the potential effects of the implication of the African Continental Free Trade Area on trade and customs in East and Southern Africa. So as we know, the African Continental Free Trade Area, which was launched in January this year, promises to expand intra-African trade. And so the theme of the next presentations will be looking at those challenges that will be affecting customs and trade when it comes to implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area's goal. Now, the first presentation will be presented by Ferdinand Ntuli and Fungai Dube, and it's actually titled The Potential Effects of the Implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area on Trade and Customs in East and Southern Africa. So as we listen to our presentation, I'd like to remind you that you are free to type your questions as you listen, and we'll get to discuss them at the end of the presentations.
Right, my name is Ferdinand Ntuli. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm presenting alongside with Fungai Dube. We are both customs practitioners. I will be taking you through a topic which was the potential effects of the implementation of the African Free Trade Area on customs and trade in East and Southern Africa. Our understanding of the topic was that we would want to look at the role of customs officers in the African Free Trade Area. What is the role? There are many stakeholders in the African Free Trade Area, and one of the stakeholders are the customs officers or customs practitioners. Now, we would want to actually locate the work of customs officers. What are customs officers expected to do? So I shall begin with my presentation. The first thing that we would want to do is just to show you an overview of what our presentation looks like. Our presentation starts with the rationale or objectives of the African Free Trade Area. We want to understand, why is it necessary to have the African Free Trade Areas? What are its benefits? Why have we embarked on such a venture as the African countries? Then I would want to sort of simplify the presentation in a diagram which looks at it from a context of the theory of change, where we have causal linkages. We have the goals, we have the inputs and the outcomes and the impact. So when we talk about the theory of change, we are trying to look at the role of customs officers within the context of the African Free Trade Area. Then the other section of the presentation, we'll be looking at overcoming non-tariff barriers through information computer technologies within the AfCFTA. We would also want to look at infrastructural development. How does infrastructural development boost intra-African trade? We will also go on to look at adapting to increase in intra-African transit trade. There will be a lot of transit trade within the African continent, and how will customs officers adapt to that? We will also go on to look at that. Then we would also want to go and look at trade facilitation and security within the AfCFTA. Then the last section of our presentation will be the recommendations and future policy direction. Now I will now start to look at the objectives of the AfCFTA. The African Free Trade Area I've identified about 5 objectives for the Africa Free Trade Area. The first objective is to enhance sustainable economic development through continental free trade. The second objective of the Africa Free Trade Area is to support Agenda 2063. Then the third objective that we have identified is boosting intra-Africa trade. The fourth objective that we have identified here is to promote trade facilitation as well as security. And then the fifth objective that we have identified here is to achieve greater economies of scale, because the Africa Free Trade Area will bring together all the African countries and they will serve as one. The next section looks at the theoretical framework. The theoretical framework that we are going to use, it starts with the goals and rationale of the Africa Free Trade Area. Then we have what we call the inputs. When we talk about inputs of the Africa Free Trade Area, we are talking about the policies, the trade policies, the treaties, and the action plans. And the ones that we have identified are the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement and GATT of 1994. We would also want to look at the Africa Commission. It does have its treaties that it has. These are the inputs. And why I call them inputs is because they are a reference point for customs officers. That is where customs officers will receive guidance, and that is the guidance that they will use in the Africa Trade Area as they maneuver in the Africa Free Trade Area and strengthen the customs role. Then we look at what we call the outputs. What outputs are we looking at? The outputs are things like the single window, the integrated border management, smart borders, and the authorized economic operations that will come into being. And these are the outputs. I call them outputs because they are a result of these policies that we have just mentioned. Then we have the outcomes. When we talk about outcomes, these are longer term advantages that will accrue. And outcomes are simplification and harmonization of procedures. The other outcome will be the reduction of NTBs and the integration of trade information, facilitation, and security. And then the theoretical framework will also look at the achievement of Agenda 263. This is an impact. The impacts are longer term than the outcomes. And when we look at the impact, we will look at achievement of Agenda 2063, achievement of the Pan-African vision, and also attainment of sustainable development goals. Our presentation, then we have put it as a diagram so that it becomes simpler for us to understand. The diagram which we have labeled theory of change, it starts with the number one, the goals of the Africa Free Trade Areas. These are social, economic development, intra-Africa trade, and the economic integration of Africa. And as I have already mentioned, there are certain policies that we are saying are the inputs. They are the inputs because that is where the customs officers are supposed to refer to, and that is where they will get their guidance. I will just mention the four that we have here. The Treaty on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is a very good reference point for customs officers. Then we have the one we call BIAT. This is to boost inter-African trade. This is a policy instrument that boosts inter-African trade. Then we have the World Trade Organization trade facilitation. The WTO TFA is also a reference point. Then we have GATT 1994. If we go through these policies, they are the inputs. They bring in what the customs officers are supposed to do. Then we have the outputs. That's what will come out of these policies. As I have mentioned before, we have the single window. We also have we may have as an output integrated border management, coordinated border management, smart borders, AEOs. And we also have quite a lot of policies that will come out, which we have listed in the outputs there. Those are the outputs. Then we have the outcomes. The outcomes will be enhanced simplification and harmonization of procedures, increased reduction of NTBs, increased integration of trade, improved trade facilitation. Then, as I mentioned before, the impact will be attainment of the Pan-African vision, attainment of SDGs, and also Agenda 2063. Then as we go through the policy, through the paper, we will notice that the role of customs will be overcoming non-tariff barriers through ICTs within the AFTA. But what is the reference point? What is the reference point for customs officers if they want to overcome this? We'll look at policies and agreements supporting use of ICTs. The Africa Free Trade Agreement, BIAT, and the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. These are the reference policies that can be used by customs officers in embracing ICTs, and customs officers also have to embrace ICTs at strategic level within customs administration to enhance automation and modernization. ICT enhanced integrated border management, coordinated border management, and data processing. These are all supported by the policies and agreements that I have highlighted right at the top there. Then we go to infrastructural development to boost intra-Africa trade. Establishment of this entails establishment of government and private sector-led, high-quality, multi-country infrastructural programs. One-stop border posts. These will also make the work of customs officers easier, and also smart borders. And if you also go through the policies that we have mentioned, in which I constantly refer to as the inputs, these can serve as a guiding principle, and these can assist us to attain this infrastructural development. Then we also go to adapting to increase in intra-Africa transit cargo. We are saying that the Africa Free Trade area will be encompassing a whole lot of countries. We will have 55 countries on board. At the current moment, we have 54. We will be having 55 countries on board. So we need to adapt to the increase in intra-Africa transit cargo. The principle, the cardinal principle in processing transit cargo is fairness, transparency, and freedom of transit. So the instruments that are supported are transit bond systems operating in Africa, national bond systems, bilateral systems, COMESA, regional transit guarantees, international transport union, and all these systems are put in place so that they can support and adapt to transit cargo within the African Union, within the Africa Free Trade Union. And the role of customs is very clear in the administration of transit cargo. And in our presentation, what we want to point out is that customs has a role in strengthening this. Then we have trade facilitation and security within the IFTA. The initiative to boost intra-Africa trade, which is a document in the Africa Commission. The trade facilitation is to reduce the time it takes to move goods from point A to B. Trade security involves regulating global trade. And these trade facilitation and trade security are very important within the Africa Free Trade area. And because they are very important, we would want to have legislation which aims to support the well-being of citizens. And at the same time, we want to make sure that the cargo moves freely. The roles of customs in addressing complex customs regulations, inefficient and costly transit system. This role is what refers to trade facilitation, and customs administrators are supposed to make sure that they enhance trade facilitation. And also, this also entails us enhancing automated risk profiling. We would want to risk profile. Risk profile assists in trade facilitation because it makes it faster to clear goods. Then embracing the guidelines of the WCO safe framework of standards to secure and facilitate trade. This will also be a reference point for our customs officers, and our customs officers will also be expected to establish national, regional risk committees. These are all roles of customs. At the end of our presentation, what we want to point out are the recommendations and future policy directions. I'll just go through the recommendations that we have here. The Africa Free Trade, the AfCFTA member states should be guided by the AfCFTA treaty, the BIAT, which is the initiative to boost inter-Africa trade, the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, GATT 1994, Article 14. So what we are saying is that as a reference point, customs administrators are supposed to constantly refer to these policy documents, these treaties, these guidelines are important for customs officers. Then the second recommendation is to pursue public-private partnerships or build, operate, and transfer BOT for infrastructural development. Remember, we said if the AfCFTA is to be successful, you need to improve the infrastructure. So what we are saying is that we need to pursue ways of financing public-private partnerships. We need to find ways of financing the building of infrastructure. And the methods that we have identified here of financing these are public-private partnerships, build, operate, and transfer, and other infrastructural development programs. The other goal would be to capacitate and extend initiatives such as COMESA Infrastructural Fund and Aid for Trade. These are other ways that can capacitate the infrastructure. Also, as a way of strengthening the AfCFTA, there is also need to craft legislation and manuals to operate in an e-commerce environment. It would appear that the e-commerce environment lacks that support of legislation and also manuals. The legislation is more akin to a manual system. Then there's also, customs officers also need to borrow from experiences in other regions, like Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia has been very successful, and we need to borrow from such experiences. Then we also have electronic data processing as opposed to paper-based controls. There is need to move away from paper-based controls. Then we need to capacitate customs in controlling digital value chains. Customs need to be capacitated, whether technically through training or whatever else that can be done to capacitate them. I now come to the end of our presentation, and the presentation is from Ferdinand Everest Ntuli, who is an independent researcher, and those are my details. We also have Fungai de Villiers Dube, who is with the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, and those are the details for Fungai Dube. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ferdinand, for the lovely presentation. Just giving us an overview of the custom-related measures and outcomes that the regional administrations need to take to support the mission of the African Continental Free Trade Area. So our next presenter is Louise Widget, and he'll be presenting on a bird's eye view from the private sector, an overview of the digitization and its effect on the African Continental Free Trade Area, gender and cross-border trade, as well as trade facilitation in general. So I'll invite Louise to give the presentation.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, colleagues. I want to wish you all the best from the Inter-Africa Trade Conference that is being hosted in Durban. We're actually attending the conference, and I would want to welcome you to the third ESA Regional Customs Research Conference. Today, I'm going to take the opportunity to give you a bird's eye view from a trade perspective around the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and the opportunity that digitization offers for us as part of the growth and the opportunities of the Africa Free Trade Agreement. In terms of the Africa Free Trade Agreement, we all know what the opportunities is that it offers for our continent and the potential that inter-Africa trade with ourselves has. The big question is whether we will be able to harness these opportunities and what would be the best way to do it. And I think the answer to that question will become clear as I step through my presentation and share with you some ideas and some concepts that we believe is important from a private sector perspective. So I think the first thing is the concept of smart. Ultimately, we will not be able to harness the opportunities of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement if we do not make smart our password and the way that we're going to operate going in the future. With the potential growth that we sit in the trade opportunities and the scarce customs resources, if we do not approach things on a smart way, we will not be able to move goods through the border in an effortless way. And also, very importantly, we will not be able to reduce the cost of doing trade. So when we talk about smart, we really talk about secure, we talk about measurable, we talk about automated, we talk about risk, and we talk about technology. Now, these are words that we must make part of our vocabulary and our thinking going forward. If we really look at the concept of smart or secure, the one thing that comes through here very strongly is the work that Customs is doing with the other government agencies to strengthen mutual trust and transparency and to create a secure and legitimate supply chain. I think that is one of the most important pillars that we need to support in our journey going forward, especially from a trade perspective and also from a customs perspective. The Safe Framework of Standards and AEO is really the opportunity that we've got for all of us to harness and to have the benefits of the safe and secure supply chain. If we want to move people quickly through the border, we want to encourage trade and travel and transport, we will have to ensure that these principles are rolled out across the continent, not only on a regional basis and a national basis, but continental-wide. It is also important that physical security enables digital visibility. So in other words, if you are secure, you can have information available, and with that information, you can actually ensure that the supply chain flows. If one looks at the same principle of the SMART concept, we're looking at measurable. And here I'm sharing with you something that really excited me and made me very. The picture that you see on your screen currently is actually for every single transit vehicle that is moving within the East Africa region. And it makes every single vehicle trackable, visible of where it is, where technology to enable the driver COVID protocols and the mutual recognition of these driver protocols across the region, which was a major trade facilitation benefit to all of these. If one takes it one step further, you then realize that this data and the availability of this data also takes another step towards helping with trade facilitation, because it can help us to actually, in the case of an accident, dispatch first responders. In the case of a breakdown, we can send somebody to assist. And by using this data and making this data collectively available and sharing it, we actually create, congratulate EAC on it. I think strongly from an African perspective and from an Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement perspective, we need to look and learn from the East Africa community and expand this type of approach across the continent, allow that mutual recognition to happen between the various authorities. And by having all this data available, we can move trade and let it flow. If we look at the next aspect then around automation, and here SMART is already part of our world. We know about cameras as you drive along the highway. What is now happening is that this photograph and this kind of information is digitized. The idea is that we can automate the access into and out of the border controlled zone, which naturally has a huge amount of benefits. It reduces friction and dwell times in the supply chain and in the customs areas. It also eliminates opportunities for crime and corruption. And by doing this, we can allow trade to flow. Also very important in the automated processes is to remove cash out of the whole equation in terms of the international supply chain. I think it's a bone of contention within the African continent. It reduces the cash incentives. It reduces the volume of cash that drivers has to carry with them. And it is also an area where there's been big progress made within the region and within the continent as well. Last but not least is really risk management. And I think this is a familiar concept within some of the customs authorities. Some of the customs authorities is beginning to use it. But from a trade perspective, this is well embedded within the trade processes. And we want to encourage and ask customs authorities to start using the risk management-based approach far more extensively. You are much more able to identify risks, be able to categorize shipments in high categories, or the low ones that is green can be allowed to flow without intervention. And it enables all of us to actually focus our attention and doing the physical inspections on the right cargo and resources that they are available in the right place. We believe that this is the side that will facilitate legitimate trade, strengthen the supply chain integrity, and also from a security point of view, mitigate a lot of those risks. This is one of the areas where we think from a public-private partnership, we can work well together. There's extensive work that's been done in the banking environment and quite a lot of the other environments, and we can share knowledge here and hold hands to make this embedded process in the international supply chain. Then if we look further, there's some other exciting technology developments. Blockchain, I think, is leading the way. At the recent WCO IT conference, this was very topical. The adoption of blockchain technology from a public-private sector perspective is critically important. Then we know geospatial data, artificial intelligence, robotics, and drones is going to change the world that we operate in. And these are not just words that we're using, these are really things that are happening on the ground. Drone technology is very effectively being used in Africa. Some wonderful projects that is happening at the moment on the ground, where blood is moved from one blood storage unit to a point where it's really used by drones, very effective way of moving goods across the border. And we know that the challenges that this creates for the customs authorities, and we encourage them to discuss this with us from a private sector perspective, that we can ensure safe, secure, and also compliant. If I have to say then, and end off with smart borders, really secure, measurable, automated, risk-based, and technology-driven is the way of the future. I think it is also important to recognize that public and private sector working together and enabling each other, that we can get smarter trade, compliant and safe trade is the way to go in terms of harnessing the opportunities of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Last but not least, I want to close with a quote from our President, Nelson Mandela, and also just touch on the opportunities and the ease that using smart technology create for our women-owned businesses and for our SMEs. Doing things digitally is much easier than doing it in a paper format. It also creates far less investment. And although the instant reaction is always that when you talk about technology and SMEs and women-owned businesses, you think it's going to be too expensive. And that is why the quote from our Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it's done, rings very true in this instance, because we can use this technology, we can use these things to enable trade, use the opportunities under the Africa Free Trade Agreement, and make growth, exponential growth, part of our life going forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I wish you all the best for the rest of the conference, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation, Luis. That was good to know about the smart technology, and it's definitely true when we talk about it seeming impossible. Right now, when we're talking about the use of drones in cross-border trade, and perhaps even just the next opening up the use of blockchain when it comes to customs administration, might seem impossible at this stage, but it's definitely some challenge that can be tackled when there is that right partnership between the private sector and the customs administration. Now, for the next part, I'll invite the questions that we have for our presenters before we move on to the second theme. And we have one question that has been directed towards Ferdinand. And it actually notes that with all the right policies and infrastructure in place, have you, Ferdinand, also looked at how corruption can be curbed amongst customs officials, since it's one of the evils that has disrupted trade facilitation? So, Ferdinand, I'll give you a chance to respond to that.
Yes, I was saying we did consider the issue of corruption. The question goes with all the infrastructure and all the prerequisites that we mentioned, we think we will have attained our goal. But if in the presentation, we talked about trade facilitation and security. When we talk about security, it also touches on issues of corruption. Because when we talk about national committees for risk management is a component of trade security, and it also looks at issues to do with corruption. That is an area that is very important in our topic, and we did touch on that. And even if you look at the initiative to boost inter-Africa trade, it has a trade facilitation cluster. And one of the suggestions that are there are that we should have national committees on risk management. We should have digitalized risk management. All those initiatives will go a long way in addressing the issue of corruption. So yes, we did consider the issue of corruption. Thank you. I hope you are answered.
Yes, thank you for that answer, Ferdinand. So yes, so definitely you did consider how corruption can be handled in implementing those measures. Now, for at least one question, I have one question for Luis. And as you're covering the smart technology concept, one of them you were talking about automating access into and out of control zones. I wanted to know if you could share details about where such type of automated access or automated border access has been used, perhaps in which border station or which station it has been used, and perhaps noting what impact it had since its introduction.
Thank you very much, Dennis, and very nice meeting you, although it's online today. And I'm now today speaking to you from Cape Town. We had the fortunate privilege of attending the Inter-Africa Trade Fair last week in Durban, which was a buzz with the opportunities of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And maybe before I step onto your question, also some comment about the anti-corruption drive of digitization. I think what is very important to understand is that with digitization, you really remove the opportunity for corrupt activities, because the minute you remove the person or people out of the supply chain and the customs processes, the opportunity to have corruption reduces exponentially. So I think this is an area that we can both work well together. And that actually leads on to your question around automated access. So SARS, the South African Revenue Services, is currently busy piloting the automation of both Beitbridge, Groblersbrug, and the Lebombo border post out of South Africa. And as everybody probably on this forum knows, Beitbridge is notorious as being a highly congested border post, so, as well as Lebombo border post. And the pilot has been running for the last month and a bit, and the results have actually been very, very promising. Although we're in the first phase of the testing of it, the level of recognition of the vehicles and the matching of the number plates to the manifest declaration, which has been submitted to the customs authorities in advance, is extremely high. And that bodes very well for the future. So the intent is then, as part of the phase 2 part of the project, is to remove any manual intervention as you enter the border post. Automatic booms will be installed, which brings us to the green line aspect. The boom, if the declaration and the manifest have both been submitted and not risk profile, the boom will open for the vehicle and the driver will be able to pass through the border post in a totally automated fashion. Also on the exit point, we will follow a similar process where again the vehicle number plate will be recognized, the boom to allow the vehicle to exit the customs control zone will be an automated process. And through this process, we have already experienced substantial improvements in the transit times through the border post. And naturally, to come back and loop back to the opportunities around corruption, these are being eliminated completely because now you don't have to pay somebody to get in front of the queue. You are automatically in front of the queue, and the queue is managed on a green lane way. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Yes, it does. And just to add a bit of more details, you've noted that it's actually being trialed at Bait Bridge. I'm aware that with Bait Bridge, the concession was actually awarded, at least I know on the Zimbabwean side, to Zim Borders Consortium. So is this automation still included by the work being done by Zim Borders Consortium?
No, the work being done by Zim Borders Consortium has actually focused on the infrastructure and obviously the movement of the vehicles and the parking area of the vehicles. I know that they introduced a ticketing system, which is slightly different to the approach that the South African authorities has taken in terms of more automated electronic process to enable the movement of the vehicles through the border post. So a slightly different approach, but we're hoping that both of those will yield results. Maybe just for you, you're sitting in Australia, regrettably. So, and I do apologize for the rugby results of late. So, although Australia did beat South Africa quite comprehensively, I hope you've kept your loyalties to South Africa. The Zim border implementation was initially very traumatic, but it was to be expected. You know, a change of this magnitude really comes with teething problems, but it has stabilized substantially. The technology teething problems have mostly been resolved. It's still a work in progress with some issues, but it has had dramatic improvements. I can tell you the statistics of the border movements, we're nearly up to about 600 vehicles going through the border in a 24-hour cycle, where at some stage we were sitting down to about 20, 30 vehicles in a 24-hour cycle. So that's a massive improvement. It also bodes well for our Christmas and festive period. And with the further automation that has been planned by both sides of the border, we can only hope in a year's time to sit at this conference again, hopefully in person, and be able to say, hey, Bait Bridge is no problem anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. And just to offer a bit more light to what we were just talking, so part of the challenges of introducing automation and even introducing one-stop border technology, as we have just noting about Zimbabwean government using Zim Borders Consortium to upgrade their side of the Bait Bridge border, that actually feeds back to part of the solutions that Ferdinand had talked about when it comes to using public-private partnerships, and in particular, using the build, own, and transfer model, the BOT model that he had noted, because that's what the Zimbabwean government has done in giving the concession to Zim Borders Consortium to upgrade their side of the Bait Bridge border. So thank you, our presenters, for that session. Now we'll move on to the next session, which will be themed around gender equity, themed around security and development, the challenges, opportunities presented by technologies and emergence of new trade practices and their potential effects on security. And for this presentation, we'll have Dr. Geoffrey Okboy and Michael Kianzi, who will be presenting on the regional electronic cargo tracking system, implications on trade facilitation and smuggling by youth in Uganda along the Northern Corridor. So I'll leave it to Dr. Geoffrey and Michael to do their presentation.
Hello, colleagues. I'm Geoffrey Okboy. I'm the Director, Economic Regulation at the Electricity Regulatory Authority. I'm going to make a presentation on the paper we wrote with my colleague, Michael Kianzi, who now currently works with the Uganda National Oil Company. However, previously he worked with the Uganda Revenue Authority. So our paper is on regional electronic cargo tracking system, its implications on smuggling by youth along the northern corridor in Uganda. So Uganda as a country, is the Pearl of Africa, and it is bordered by the other countries that you can see in the map there. Very important and unique is that Uganda has a population right now of about 47.7 million in 2021. However, at the time we did this study, that was around 2016, 2017, the population of Uganda was about 44 million. And by then, Uganda was ranked number 32 in the world. Currently, Uganda is number 31 in the world population. So we can see the rapid growth in the population. The population of Uganda is majorly made of people below the age of 70, the age of 30. And we can see that up to 78% of the population is below the age of 30. And specifically for our study, we are concerned with the youth. And you can see that almost a quarter of the population of Uganda is made up of the people in the age bracket of 18 to 30 years. What does this mean? This means that the rapid growth in the youth population has implications on unemployment. We can see that up to 83% of the population of those who are unemployed are actually the youth. We have also observed the high levels of poverty among the unemployed youth, and this has increased the unrest in the country, and the youth are involved in the criminal activities, which among them include smuggling. There, the picture shows of what is going on, and the information available shows that Uganda suffers a lot to smuggling, and the unpaid taxes go up to almost 700 million. That was in 2011. So you never know right now. The issue may have even escalated further. But the pictures tell you that even people with disabilities are involved in smuggling. The youth, they wrap against their body contraband materials. These are phones, and try to smuggle them. Issue of cigarettes and various cigarettes, again, with a vehicle in the bush. That is all smuggling. But what is smuggled? We can see that what is smuggled, according to the radar of the Revenue Authority, is those at high risk are cigarettes, beer, even used clothing, textiles, tires, petroleum, and fuel. These are all items that are smuggled in the country, and they are on the high radar list. Then on the medium risk, we can see electronics, vehicles, motor vehicle parts. These are also smuggled, including issues of cosmetics. Now, since we are talking about the Northern Corridor, what is the Northern Corridor in this study? We know that the Northern Corridor moves all the way from Mombasa into the hinterland of Kenya, and then comes into the border with Uganda at Busia and Malaba. And then we have various legs of the Northern Corridor. We have one which goes into southern, western and southern Uganda and crosses into the DRC. We also have one leg going to northern Uganda and crosses into southern Sudan and the other part of Congo. Now, along the borders of Uganda, especially with the eastern border of Uganda with Kenya, this is a porous border, and all along here there is quite a bit of smuggling that happens. When we go to the western part of Uganda, again, this is a long border and it is a porous border with Congo, and there is also recognizable levels of smuggling in that area. Now, to minimize smuggling, the three countries of East Africa, that is Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, came up with the concept of regional electronic cargo tracking system. And this was done in 2016. But what is the electronic cargo tracking system? This is essentially equipment and such equipment includes electronic seals, fuel sensors, and we can see that with these electronic seals and sensors, these are fitted on cargo trucks such that they are monitored along the way. Now, to be able to monitor these vehicles along the way with the merchandise they are carrying, there are centralized command centers which were based in Kigali, in Kampala, and in Nairobi. At the time, in 2016, they started with 3 countries, but as you will notice later, more countries have joined the electronic cargo tracking system. With that, to be able to enforce tracking along the way and such that the cars do not dump goods along the way, there is the rapid response units along the corridor, and these are all to ensure that the cargo does not be diverted along the way. There is also the automatic number plate recognition system, which is used to check the vehicles if they are being tracked to know whether they are the same vehicles they are looking at or they are different vehicles. The smart gates operations, we have the CCTV systems which are at the customers' points. All of this together makes up what we call the electronic cargo tracking system. So when the electronic cargo tracking system is in play, then all the vehicles that have been tagged with this equipment can be visible along the corridor. So this is our corridor from Mombasa, and here we are showing that vehicles which will be moving along here fitted with those sensors, they will be able to be seen where they are. And with that, they have also put in place guidelines. If you are within the electronic cargo tracking system, you are not supposed to stop along the way unless it is a designated stopping point. Now, what is the research issue in this study? We noticed that since the implementation of the cargo tracking system in 2016, and by the time we did our study, we could see that not much had been known. But we know that it had been brought in place to minimize cargo diversion and cargo loss. But we know that there were people who were negatively benefiting from that vice of diversion of cargo, the cargo being smuggled from one country to another. Now, when this project came in place, what happened to the livelihood of the smugglers? Did they adapt to do other things, or did they continue with their vice but in a different way? So these were the issues that we were concerned with, and so the study was born. Now, specifically, we had a number of questions to ask and answer. So the 4 questions, to answer them, we had to look at the data, and our approach was to use a mixed method in which we have both qualitative and quantitative data. We also had primary and secondary data. Now, when it comes to the data that we are working with, remember we wanted to see the impact of this new program of regional electronic cargo tracking system. So to be able to look at the impact, we had to compare the situation before and the situation after it had been implemented. Were there differences in the efficiency, the time that the cargo was involved to move from one point to another? Then, when we looked at data, which is to do with qualitative data, we had to get this qualitative data through a semi-structured questionnaire. To be able to do this, we had to undertake face-to-face interviews of those people whom we had purposefully identified through a snowball sampling technique, because this is the people who can tell you who their colleague may be, who may be involved in a vice that you want to learn about. So random sampling cannot work in this case, but purposively you can snowball and identify the people that you want to target for your study. And this is the approach we had to use. And in that case, we were able to get data from 100 participants in these towns that we were looking at. Now, as a qualitative data, we were looking at a Likert scale on how far the respondents can agree or disagree with a particular issue that we have put to them. And in this case, to be able to do the analysis of the first data, we had to do a t-test in order to look at the differences, whether there is significant difference in the time between before and after the implementation of the project. Then for the data that is of Likert scale, in order to know whether there is any significance in the outcome from the data you have analyzed, we used the Shapiro-Wilks test to see that if data is normally distributed, then you can see that people their responses are normally distributed. But if it is not normally distributed, it is skewed to one side, then you can know that the responses are majorly skewed to an issue that you want to point out. So under the Shapiro-Wilks test, if the result is less than 0.05, then you can know that that data is not normally distributed. Then you will reject the normality of the data, and you can then tell that there is a high concentration of respondents on the issue that you are looking at. Then to be able to look at the relationship between smuggling impact and the issue of the coping mechanism, we use the structural equation modeling method, and this would help us to see how people move from the impact to coping. And with that, our analysis with primary data, basically to do with the description, it told us that most of the data that we are looking at from the SCUDA and from the RECTIS was largely import data, but also remember, we also have, as a country, we have re-exports, we have inward transit, we have import warehousing. Because Uganda being in the part of the central countries, we have warehousing services. The data, the goods are then exported to other countries within the neighborhood. But when you looked at that data, you could see that much of the data, much of the regional cargo tracking actually was focusing on data on transit and re-exports, because this is where they found that there are loopholes. When data is when goods are in transit, you will find that instead of leaving the country, they may instead be opened and be sold within the country, and yet they are not being charged the taxes. So the tracking was largely on transit goods and re-exports, and then to a limited extent, imports and export goods. Now, when we are looking at the data, we also wanted to know, where does the goods that come into the country go? From Mombasa, if they have come in, where do they end up? We noticed that most of the goods end up in the DRC. Those that are monitored were actually goods which were going to the Democratic Republic of Congo, to a limited extent, Tanzania, but also those that were going to Rwanda and South Sudan made the other majority. Now, the first objective was to look at the impact of this program or project on transit time. And you can see that before the implementation of RECTS and after the implementation of RECTS, you can see that the transit time decreased. And overall, there was an overall decrease in the number of days by 22%. So to us, RECTS had a bigger impact on the transit time. And we noticed that this bigger impact was actually because when goods are in transit, the trucks are not allowed to stop until they reach the destination, which is gazetted. Other than that, they can be penalized for violating the rates guidelines. The second thing we wanted to see is that who is involved in smuggling, and we are concerned about the youth. And our data, as you can see here, indicates that actually most of the people who were involved in smuggling are the youth. And this is from the information we received from key informants. Most of them strongly agreed that the youth, particularly the male gender, were the ones who were involved in smuggling. And from our Shapiro-Wilks test of normality, we can see that it is statistically significant that this data is not normally distributed, meaning it is skewed, that all people were giving an answer that was totally in confirmation that there is a strong agreement that the youth were those that were involved in smuggling, and this is the male gender. When we looked at the implication of rates on smuggling, and remember we are asking our question, when we are asking people, do you think did this issue increase when this was implemented? When it comes to, for example, the extent of merchandise smuggling in the area, we can see that most of the people are saying that they disagree, two means they disagree, that there has been an increase. When we talk about fuel siphoning, we asked, has it increased? They said they disagree that it has increased. And the last aspect of it is the issue of, so if people have been affected by the regional cargo tracking system, but remember up there, there is clarity that not many people agree that electronic cargo tracking had affected them. But then we asked, if it has affected you, what coping mechanism have you put in place? What are you now doing, now knowing that the business of smuggling has really been of a risk given the issue of electronic cargo tracking system? And we noticed that most of the people here neither agree nor disagree. That is the three, neither agree nor disagree that they have coped because of the electronic cargo tracking system. We can see that they have not, they don't see anyone coping by going to agriculture. They don't see anyone coping by going back to school. They don't see anyone coping by going away from the area, and they don't see the youth abandoning smuggling as a coping mechanism. What is only there, and which was of significant value, was the issue of agreeing that the coping has been into border. So we can see the results showing that at least some youth have gone into border as a way to cope with the issue of the riskiness of smuggling due to electronic cargo tracking system being established. And finally, we come to the issue of conclusions, and we can conclude from our data analysis that most of the cargo which was in transit, which was being tracked, was actually going to DRC. And we could also see that the transit time for cargo trucks, which were monitored under rates, had reduced. And we noticed that the youth who are of the male gender were the key in smuggling, and implementation of rates had to some extent heightened the risk of smuggling of monitored goods. And also to notice that the youth had not abandoned smuggling, but we could notice that the youth had actually gone into border as a way to camouflage, but also to use the border to diversify their income, but also to smuggle the goods. With that, we had our recommendations. By then, that is in 2018, rates had only been implemented in Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. So our first recommendation, knowing that most of the goods were going to Congo and to some extent to Tanzania and South Sudan, we recommended that that initiative, which we considered good, be extended to these 3 countries, that is DRC, Tanzania, and South Sudan. The other recommendation we said is that given the kind of vice that we are dealing with, which were really taking a lot of government revenue, we thought that government should come up with a law that would make smuggling a high risk and low reward activity. And finally, thought that possibly government would need to target the youth smugglers so that they can be prepared for a career change. Believe that even Uganda Revenue Authority, maybe under its CSR projects, that is the corporate social responsibility, could come up with a specific project which would target the youth who are involved in smuggling, such that they can see the dangers of smuggling and they can reform and get out of this bad vice. Now, just to recap and close on this is what happened since then. Remember, we were to present these results in 2018, 2019, but because of COVID, it could not work. So what happened to our recommendations? We can see that RECTS has been expanded. The East African community has adopted the RECTS as a good practice, and it expanded this to even include truck drivers to be monitored as a way of monitoring COVID. They also include the truck drivers, and the tracking changed from regional electronic cargo tracking only to include also tracking drivers, and the system changed from RECTS to RECTS. And finally, to notice that this program now has been extended to the other regions, which include the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, and Tanzania. Thank you for listening to me. That is our presentation with respect to the impact of electronic cargo tracking system. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Geoffrey. As we've already been able to note, the presentation does build up on what we've already just previously covered. We noted that one of the SMART concepts was tracking data. And here, Dr. Geoffrey has given us our wonderful presentation on Uganda's experience with cargo tracking and the effect it's had on smuggling, the areas to improve, and of course, the developments that have also occurred in recent times with COVID-19 and how the program has been expanded. Now, for our final part, our presentation will be themed around gender equity, equality, and diversity. And it's all about highlighting opportunities presented in the integration of gender practices and promotion of diversity in customs and trade in East and Southern Africa. And our presenter here will be Sandra Chihaka from the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. And her presentation will be titled, A Meta-Analysis of the Opportunities Likely to be Presented in the Integration of Gender Practices and Promotion of Diversity in Customs and Trade in East and Southern Africa. So I'll let Sandra cover her presentation.
Have you ever wondered what type of organizations we would have if gender equality, gender equity, and gender diversity were made a priority? You may be wondering, what does this have to do with this conference? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all attendees. My name is Sandra Chihaka. I'm a supervisor at the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. If you follow through my presentation, you will be able to understand the benefits that are likely to be presented in the integration of gender practices and promotion of diversity in customs and trade in East and Southern Africa. My presentation is outlined as follows. I'll start with the introduction, go on to the statement of the problem, justify the study, also look at the objectives of the study that I took, a brief literature review, the methodology, findings, policy recommendations, then I'll conclude. Although topical in contemporary trade discourse, gender equality and diversity dimensions in Africa, especially in East and Southern Africa, are poor. This is despite them being recognized as an engine of sustainable development and growth by various developmental agencies. Gender inequality in sub-Saharan Africa in particular averages about 0.569, whereas in Europe and Central Pacific, it's about 0.270. In East Asia, it's 0.312. And this is according to the United Nations Development Program Gender Inequality Index of 2017. From the figures above, it seems to suggest that there is a positive correlation between economic development and gender equality. If you look at the figures again, it seems to indicate that those countries which are well up in terms of economic development seem to do also better in terms of gender equality, whereas those countries which struggle in terms of economic development also struggle in terms of gender equality. And for your own information, the United Nations Development Gender Inequality Index ranges from 0 to 1, 0 being the best, and 1 being the worst. And from the figures, Sub-Saharan Africa is towards 1, which is the worst position, and the other countries, the other regions, they are towards 0, which is a better position in terms of gender equality. This topic that I'm presenting on takes place where there is reconceptualization of development to base it on human well-being, especially of the marginalized in society, especially the women. From this, we can see that human development is now being measured in terms of the human well-being dimension and not the output dimensions that we are used to, for example, the GDP. So this is a topic, a contemporary topic in the present global discussions. What might be the problem? Why do I have to look at this topic? Why did I do a research on this? Apart from the multilateral and regional commitments, there have also been initiatives that have specifically targeted integration of gender in customs and trade. For example, there's the World Customs Gender Inequality Organizational Assessment Tool, as well as the WCO Virtual Group for Gender Equality and Diversity. But still, gender equality levels remain low. Why? Why did I look at this topic? Even though the benefits of promoting women's participation in international trade have been noted in previous studies, little is focused on customs, especially in the East and Southern Africa region. It is interesting to note that women contribute 55% to regional trade in Sub-Saharan Africa, mostly through informal trade. This is according to the Food and Agriculture Organization 2018 edition. Despite having this big number to regional trade, women are still sidelined due to lack of capital, due to a patriarchal society. Then this study will be important to policymakers so that they are given the welfare nature of contemporary trade discourse is something that they should be able to look at, and especially the fact that the World Bank has defined or has identified the involvement of women in trade as an economic development tool, as an economic development measure that will improve society, and it will also lead to sustainable development and not just development which is not sustainable. To carry out my study, my objectives were twofold. One, I had to identify the gender equality challenges that the gender equality challenges facing customs and trade in the East and Southern Africa region. The second objective was to explore some benefits that customs and trade authorities stand to gain from enforcing gender equality measures. To carry out my study, I had to do a little bit of literature review, and it was basically to look at the broader benefits that are likely to be derived from the integration of gender equality in customs and trade operations, which would also make work to motivate East and Southern Africa member states to take action to promote equality. So I looked at literature that looked at the benefits that can be derived from integrating gender equality in organizational culture, so that as ESA member countries would be able to derive some lessons and be motivated to promote gender equality in the workplace. One such study was by Moda and others in 2018, and these looked at female leadership in Uganda Revenue Authority, and their findings were that women leaders had a superior work ethic. Women work harder than men, and they are more serious in their daily activities than their male counterparts. They also found out that women are more likely to focus on getting their work done. They also serve a longer period in the organization compared to their male counterparts. And they also found out in particular that on average, women in the Uganda Revenue Authority worked for about 12.3 years compared to men who worked for an average of 11.6 years, which shows that women have a superior work ethic and they are more committed to whatever they put their minds on. Another literature review, another study that I looked at was the one by Well in 2013, whereby he found out that women in higher management positions in customs contribute to lower levels of corruption. Also, organizations that integrate diversity and inclusiveness perform better due to broader perspectives and new ideas. Lastly, he also found out that women leadership is generally more participatory and inclusive compared to leadership by men. Another study was by Taneja and others in 2018. And this study was meant to identify the challenges and impediments that women engaging in cross-border trade faced. And the study looked at the regions of North Bengal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. And they looked at what were the implications of gender mainstreaming in trade policies. This study found out that neglect of gender-specific constraints in the trade facilitation framework has serious implications, not only on women's empowerment, but also for productivity and greater potential to the economies. So it shows that in a nutshell, if you empower a woman, you empower the nation. But if you empower a man, you empower an individual, like what Kofi Annan said. So if you may ask, how did I carry out my study? My study was mostly meta-analysis approach, whereby I was assessing data providing from multiple studies which were looking at the same phenomenon of gender inequality. I also carried out interviews and observations. I used data sources like the Abraham Index of African Governance, the United Nations Development Programme Gender Inequality Index, case studies, and experiences of some ZIMRA staff and informal traders. And this is what I came up with. SADC, the Southern Africa Development Community, EAC, the East African Community, as well as COMESA, the common market for East and Southern Africa, they contain gender-related provisions. Yet, these regions have registered some of the highest levels of gender inequality. COMESA has what is called a gender policy and gender mainstreaming strategy. EAC has a gender and community development framework, whereas in Zimbabwe, there is the Zimbabwe Gender Policy and also the National Gender Commission. If we look at SADC as a regional economic community, it also has a protocol on gender and development. So looking at these regions, they have gender-related provisions in their formulations. But most of the gender-specific challenges that women face engaging in trade have persisted due to member countries' failure to commit to enforcing gender mainstreaming policies, which are contained in the regional economic commissions. These regional economic commissions have blueprints which are there, which support gender equality. Yet these ones are not domesticated, they are not ratified in the domestic laws of the individual member countries. And I also found out that gender inequality remains a barrier to trade and development in East and Southern Africa. This is due to the fact that due to gender practices, due to the historical imbalances which have been there, women are unable to access loans. They are unable to get collateral for them to be able to be involved in trade activities, unlike their male counterparts. The male counterparts usually have capital, they are usually trusted, they have the title deeds for them to be able to get loans, they have the title deeds for them to be able to get collateral and then be able to be involved in trade activities. Whereas women have been historically disadvantaged and they are not able to carry out some of these activities. Hence, they are found in mostly the informal trade, which doesn't require a lot of capital to engage in. Also, in terms of leadership, most customs administrations in East and Southern Africa are male-dominated. One might ask why. This partly mirrors the patterns of authority in the African society. The African society is mostly patriarchal. Men are the ones who lead, they are the heads of the family. They are the ones who decide, they are the ones who give command. And the women are there to be submissive. They are there to take orders. They are there to just listen and not to challenge anything. So this is mirrored in most customs administrations in East and Southern Africa. Another reason might be the historical nature of tariff collection, which was usually characterized by confrontation between the customs collector and the trader. And there was a risk of coercion and violence during the interaction. So that's why most customs administrations are male-dominated, especially on the leadership part. However, most customs reforms, many modern customs reforms, for example, the authorized economic operators, the risk management, we look at the one-stop border posts, we look at the single window initiatives. They've resulted in more of trade facilitation and less of gatekeeping, meaning that women can be more involved in such activities, meaning that there are more skills required in compliance than enforcement. There will be more of post-clearance measures instead of the gatekeeping approach, which favored males compared to females. Nowadays, the modern customs reforms is more of brain than brawn. Even though it's not empirically verifiable, some superiors in customs administrations prefer working with men compared to working with women. Why? One might ask. Men are most unlikely to take time off to take care of the family. The woman has been labeled the caregiver since time immemorial. When a sick family member is bedridden or they are not able to take care of themselves, it's the woman who is delegated those duties to become the nurse and the caregiver. Based on the findings presented, These are the recommendations that I would make for customs in East and Southern Africa. 1, customs authorities should ensure that their gender mainstreaming efforts are accompanied by information sharing, training, and awareness raising to help change the attitude and belief that gender inequality exists within the organizational culture. Secondly, I would recommend domestication and enforcement of regional gender policies. We can't have COMESA, EAC, and SADC just having blueprints which are not implemented at the national and organizational level. Thirdly, I would recommend that trade and economic growth must be responsive to the influence by gender equality policies. And lastly, I would recommend that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area be a good opportunity to work and to look at gender equality enforcement mechanisms. To conclude, the initiatives to address gender inequality in East and Southern Africa have not yielded desired results, and the results which we're looking at were improving gender equality. The East and Southern Africa member countries stand to benefit from improved organizational performance, less corruption, and increased global competitiveness if they are to integrate gender perspectives in their customs and trade operations. Gender equality is a necessary condition for economic development, and it's not an afterthought. And without gender equality, sustainable development is not sustainable and is not development at all. I thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Sandra, on gender practices in the region. And also I'll invite the questions, and we do have one question. You've been asked, what would you say to the assertion that gender-related problems are hard to address because most trade data is not gender disintegrated? And he notes that, for instance, women are also women are mostly involved in informal trade. That is, you noted 70%. However, informal trade is largely illegal and statistics are hard to get. So did that factor affect your research?
It's true that most trade data is not gender disaggregated, which affects most researches that are done. And it's also true that it's mostly women who are involved in informal trade. For example, it's about 75%, like what I presented in my presentation. Obviously, this would affect any research that is to be done. This was taken into consideration. And if you are to look at my objectives, they're mostly to look at, it was mostly looking at customs in East and Southern Africa. It was mostly looking at the customs operations and not necessarily maybe the cross-border trader. But like I mentioned in the presentation, that was taken into effect, and obviously it would affect any nature of research that one is to take. That's why I was saying maybe trade policies have also to take into consideration the gender specific needs of women, and not just having a non-gender approach to the challenges that we are facing in East and Southern Africa. I hope I've answered your question.
Okay, thank you for that response, Sandra. We also have a second question, and here's you've been asked, someone would like to know whether you actually you measure the educational level of the respondents from customs staff during your study.
Of course, I did. Most customs officers are usually, we can say they're educated, because these are mostly degreed people. But if you look at the trade, the general trader, it's mostly the not so educated members of our society. They are usually the ones who engage into in this cross-border trade activities. So definitely that was considered. But for customs, in most cases, It's usually the ones who have maybe done their first degree, and some who are even maybe in their second degree or better. So that was also considered even in the studies that were taken, especially the one by Taneja et al. It also considered the educational levels of the respondents.
So my question would be, you noted that the regional bodies seem to be reluctant or fail to commit to implementing the gender equality policies that are already there. So we have the policies in place that are just not being implemented. What is your perception or your thoughts on why those policies are not being implemented at the regional level, or the countries are not committing to implementing those policies?
Like I said, gender equality has been sidelined all along. Most developmental agencies and most regional economic communities have looked at the economic benefits that they get. And mostly they've looked at economic relations, they've looked at output levels. They've not considered the human welfare nature of development itself. So they've mostly focused on maybe their security situations, they've mostly focused on their production situations, but not taking into consideration who contributes most to that development that is taking place. So like I said, gender equality has been, it's an afterthought in most of these regional economic communities. It's not something that is put at the forefront. It's one of those issues. And maybe for those who implement that, is because of the requirements of development partners, but not like it being given priority as a dimension which has to be focused on. That's what I can say. I submit.
Well, yeah, that's a good reflection. I mean, when we talk about something, as you noted, curbing corruption in customs administration, we might talk about the technological aspect or changing policies and operations within the administration, but you rarely hear someone talking about changing management in terms of a gender angle to it. If, as you pointed out, studies have found that women managers, there's less corruption if there's managers. Women are more at the management level than men. So,
sorry,
so,
Dr. Ndonga,
yes.
just to add that the Governing Council of the Eastern Southern Africa region mandated the region's leadership and customs officers to develop gender modules for Eastern Southern Africa that would help improve on gender equity, equality, and diversity. And as time goes, we are continuing now to even talk less about gender equity and equality and talk about inclusion. And Sandra here is a member of that team. I'm also happy to see Huitsi Lenyatso, who is a co-chair in that panel. So we have already developed a module for gender. We have already developed certain tools that will help administrations in Eastern Southern Africa improve on not just gender, but also equity and equality. And next year, with the team led by Huitsi and Stephen from Uganda, we are going to be planning a conference on the same. So Sandra's research couldn't have come at a better time. And I just wanted to congratulate her together with the team working on that. Thank you, Dr.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm conscious of our time, so I'll end our presentations at this point. Thank you all the presenters for your wonderful presentation and the time you've taken to prepare the presentations, do the research work, deliver the presentation, and of course, make this an engaging and informative conference. And so from now, I'd like to pass the role back to our distinguished moderator to guide us through the final points for the day.
So we will end here and meet again tomorrow morning, if that is correct. So thank you all, and I'll hand over to ROCB for the concluding remarks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. You have set us off, and we are done with the day. Tomorrow, we hope that the conference will take about 2.5 hours. and save on the time, but we release everyone. See you tomorrow at 9 in the morning, Central Africa time, which will be 10 in the morning, East Africa time, and 11 in Mauritius. Once again, thank you, moderator, for the good job. Thank you to Dr. Ndonga as well for the good job. We are really, really grateful to the Paradise of Mauritius for this support, and the RTC Kenya for their assistance and help in putting up together these, and also to the Lawyers Hub Kenya that is helping us with all these. Thank you and see you tomorrow.